Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Starbase Weekly. This is episode 69. My name is Mauricio, and I'll pass this along to Indian Star.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We have lots of photos for you, and guess who got aerial photos for us? That's right, Mauricio did. And I will pass it over to Nate.
Oh, yes. It's going to be an exciting flyover. Hopefully the last set of pictures before the first launch. That's our hope. And so I hope y'all are as excited as we are. So, Thomas, take it away.
Thank you. I'll be driving today. Zach is technically driving, but not the same thing.
He's literally driving.
Yeah. We actually have quite a few people listening today that are driving to Starbase right now, even joining us right now, but they're all muted, so we can't hear them. But there's quite a few people driving already to Starbase because Monday is supposedly the day. It's got the launch license, everything checked. There's one other issue we could jump right into if we want to, or we can come to that later. I think we should talk about that one a little bit later when we get to the launch site. But for now, let's start off with our favorite starting off point, really, is Massey's. So there's been quite a bit of developments and changes going on here the past week. So we've got 26.1 on the basically the can crusher. Its aft section sitting over here. So this would be on yesterday's flyover. I'm sorry, the 12th flyover photos. But it's very interesting because they've gone through and decided they would like to change out the bottom structure of it as well. So it has I guess you could say, not a clamp, but a piece that would be attaching to the clamp for the can crusher down here. And so I'm pull up the ground shots for that as well.
Has a Franken clamp.
Yeah, very much so. So you can see it here. It's basically like a bracket, but it's a clamp as well. And then they're going to do the same thing for all of these. So or at least I suspect they should do it for all of these. So they only have the first three. You can see this first one, the second one, and the third one here. But there's 20 of these that they should be going through and doing this whole clamp mechanism to, where they weld on a couple of triangles to basically help support it and help spread out the load and weight. But what's interesting is that it's going to be under a lot of tension. So underneath, they have the hydraulic rams basically placed and set to do some puck shucking action. So those hydraulic rams will push up against the bottom dome of this test article. And it's definitely not a usual system, because we're obviously missing that bottom 9 feet that should exist but doesn't exist here, because they cut it off. They actually did a really good job. I can't even see like any burrs or anything from this distance, but it looks really good, nice and clean as far as that cut goes.
Thomas, is this a ship puck that's underneath this?
Yeah, this should be a ship puck. So it would have 3 sea level, 3 vacuum raptors, or at least the connection points for them. But obviously, this would never fly. This is very short. It's just a test article to verify structural integrity and other things. Obviously, they haven't started testing quite yet. The manhole's open. That means that typically you don't do any testing unless you're wanting to get rid of a nice, useful ladder.
I was going to say we did see something with a shorter nozzle, but that was on a Falcon 9. That was last night. That was on the Transporter 7.
I missed that. I was going to watch it and was ready to, and then a bunch of other things came up.
It was a good one.
I watched the replay, and the short nozzle threw me off. I didn't realize it was a thing, and I was like,
"It's a thing now."
Look right. Yeah.
And so you're talking about the new vacuum optimized nozzle, but it's shorter?
It's shorter. The MVAC, yes, sir.
Wow. That is crazy. I mean, you want them to be long because it gives you better thrust, but I guess this weighs less and still has the curvature just right.
Good deduction, my friend. That's what they said. The SpaceX people said as well. They said that they use the shorter nozzle when they don't have as heavy of a payload or they don't need as much thrust. But they said, don't worry, they'll be using the larger nozzle on like the Falcon Heavies or anything that's got a larger, heavier payload.
Yeah, it just gets that a little bit better performance because you get better ISP out of that. But that is so nice.
But you know what was interesting was the booster even had a short flame when it was landing on the drone ship. Even that was smaller than normal.
Which it shouldn't be anything different on that one. That's funny.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Okay, the next couple of things that we have here is going to be nose cone. I think this was 29. I'm always forgetting this one. Maybe old Jax will join us later. Correct me on that. But anyways, the interesting part is like every week just going through and checking to see if there's been any signs or changes really up in this section of the nose cone where you're looking for any dents or deformations. And still, we don't have anything here yet. That's
no signs of testing at all.
That's a really weird one. It's like it's either they're just lightly pushing on it, or they haven't even tested it yet. One of those two.
Which is interesting because I really believe they would test this before the first flight, being they got it in place and had it ready to go. I really thought they would get this nose cone tested before OTF1.
Okay. So Jake is correcting me. It's nose cone 31. But yeah, it would have been an interesting use for a ship. But yeah, it's definitely not for a ship. Good catch. Thank you, Jake. But yeah, if precedent holds up, what they would do is, since Monday is going to be the flight day, they'll test it tomorrow. That's kind of the style of SpaceX. They've done that in the past, at least with nose cone 12, or it would have been for ship 12. That particular nose cone was tested right before they launched SN15. So that this would be kind of in the realm of, oh yeah, let's test it right before flight. Make sure we have all the data, or it's just they're in a testing mood. I don't know.
They're in a launching mood, is what they're in.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, because that's that's the biggest part about is the whole thing is, since I've started watching and looking and researching everything back in was it even earlier than 2019? But really started paying attention back in 2019 that I've just been waiting for that launch, and I still haven't seen Mark 1 fly yet. I mean, part of Mark 1 flew, but yeah, that didn't happen. So yeah, there's always expectations and timelines that we never hit, but the big one is the milestones that are like the full stack. That is the big one. So I'm excited to see that. We talked a little bit last week about the new stairs, but we do actually have what appears to be over here on this side, additional pipe racks. So what those pipe racks should go to is potentially the section in here. This would be, I think that was D, pad D for the cryo station for the booster. And then we can also see basically that new interesting item inside of here, which appears to be a part of a test stand. We have additional material surrounding it. So this was being brought in by truck last week. We could see some of that on the drone flyover, but now it's coming together. They're basically using this as a welding tent. We still have a question of like what this is directly for. Let me see if I've got a little bit better view from the top to describe that. This one might be a little bit better. So it appears that there are at least 2 or 3 of these kind of U-shaped sections. You can see it here, and you can also see it here. These might be indicators of, let's say, a part of a puck shucking system for starships, because it's kind of in that direction where the RVACs would be. So if that is the case, we might be seeing basically either part of a jig that would basically replace what's going on here, because this is a very makeshift setup. They might be switching over to making sure that you have a nice setup for puck shucking on the cam crusher, because the current setup is very ad hoc, and we've seen signs as of yesterday that they're possibly going through and removing all of the hydraulic rams off of test stand A.
I was going to say, they looked like they were pulling the stuff off of A yesterday.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Is like, what were they using? Just the normal crane, Nate, to do that?
It looked like workers, and I'm not even sure if they'd gotten to the point of even having anything like a grove over there. It looked like they were in just the beginning processes of dismantling all the hydraulics and things that go along with it.
Now, would you speculate if that was for, moving it over to the can crusher later, or do you think they're worried about potentially damaging it for the first test flight here?
I think they're just moving it personally. It makes sense to get the launch area to where you're doing launches and static fires. And the more the structural testing, you don't have to do it, just do that. And you got this contraption in the tent being made, the crane crushers down here. It just, sometimes the easy thing gets the right thing.
I'm not sure if we lost you on the important part. Did you catch that, Indian Star?
No, I heard potato as well.
Okay.
All right. Give me a second.
Actually, we can hear you now. If you want to try that sentence one more time, just don't move a muscle, except your mouth.
Where did y'all lose me so I don't rehash everything?
I think you just started from where you said the important thing is. Being able to
get every...
Never mind.
The regular...
Yeah, started potato again. Yeah.
Right.
That would be pretty bad to start potato out on. The important thing is, again, and that would be that'd be such a large tease there. Anyways, we'll get back to that in just a little bit here. They've been going through and getting the entire groundwork basically shored up. So really grading masses for preventing of flooding and other things. So they've got this larger pea-sized gravel. They're basically spreading around pretty much everywhere, especially the lower line areas where you've got water. So like, even though there's water here, this one's not nearly as necessary as the areas that they're driving, as well as parking cars and just everything else. It's just useful to have that gravel in here. Let me see if there was anything else at Massey's that was really just had to be mentioned here before we move on a little bit. And I'll wait for Nate as well, because he'll possibly have some good feedback.
We
as
talked
well.
about your tent aperture last week, right? Or
Tent
was that
aperture?
this week? The hole in the tent that has his big ring stand looking thing in it?
Yeah, we were just talking about that
No, I know
a
just
minute
now.
ago.
But did we talk about it last week as well, or was it only this week?
I think we talked a little bit about last week.
Was the
We
ring
knew
there?
that the ring, we knew the ring was there. It's just, this is one of the few times we've gotten a good view of it, because it's basically been covered up for the most part. And we did get a little bit of a view from the drone, because it's been 2 weeks since the last flyover now.
Yep.
So we did just get that quick view from the drone there. But let's see. Actually, speaking of the drone, Mauricio, did you actually get a chance to do any drone footage, or are you still having issues with that?
No drone footage. I wasn't able to fix the previous drone, so we're gonna buy a new one
Okay.
or a
So-
used one. In other words.
Are you saying that that's what this show could help fund, perchance? In addition to flyovers?
I mean, if that could be the thing. And I'm not sure if y'all saw the extensions of the TFRs that were just posted for the 19th to the 24th. So we did a fundraiser to do multiple flights. I don't know who's better spoken at doing saying this. Thomas, I don't know if you want to recap what we did yesterday.
Yeah. So what we've done is basically, we are not sure if they're going to fly on the first chance on Monday. So there's going to be excitement one way or the other. If they do not fly, it will basically be a wet dress rehearsal, and they'll scrub and basically go through and kind of figure out all the issues and what they need to change for basically Tuesday's launch attempt, because this is something that will happen pretty much for every launch industry. It really never goes the first time. So what we're planning on doing is, either way, on Monday, we are doing a flyover on Monday. So it's going to be either we're going to look at the booster, see what happened with it as far as what dress rehearsal, or if it's been a launch and successful, it should have come back about 19 to 20 miles offshore. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to see how well it held up, and especially that whole splashdown routine, because that one's going to be a bit interesting. It's going to basically land vertically, or supposed to land vertically in the water, then tip over and be in one piece. I'm not sure if that's quite the case, but it should still be floating, because there's quite a bit of volume of displacement in there to basically keep it floating. But the other thing is, we're going to be doing flyovers at least twice to hopefully 3 times or more this week. So that's the big one. So yesterday we went through and got a donation round started, which was directly through PayPal, and we're going to actually say we're going to do that again today. So if we're going to do a third flyover, so we'll try to do one Monday. We'll basically do one maybe on Wednesday or even Friday as well. So like that's the kind of the direction we're going, or maybe whatever the weather is, because that's the big one. But we'd like to be able to do 3 flyovers this week. So that's a interesting direction to go. We normally don't do that, except this week is kind of special. It's the first test flight.
It's also our friend Gameplay Review's birthday. Gameplay Review UK's birthday on the 17th. So he might just get the best birthday present ever.
Oh, fireworks, I hope.
In a good way.
Yeah. So if here's another way to look at it. If we don't fly Monday, we would fly as well on, or actually we should fly on Monday. It's the best weather. But Tuesday, if they scrub and everything else, that would be another way to look at it. We'd be flying Monday and then Tuesday, but we'd like to be able to fly again at the close to the end of the week, be able to get updated views of what's going on, and just basically get back onto that nice regular schedule of flyovers, because we've been missing a few lately, and this would be good to have. And plus, another thing, Mauricio, that you've talked about is every time we go to do one of these flyovers and it's terrible weather, sometimes it looks good, doesn't look good, and you and your pilot drive out to do a flyover, and it doesn't happen. the weather just gets worse. It looked like it was going to be okay or could clear up, and it just goes to the south direction, and that's unfortunate. So we also want to help and pay the pilot a little bit as well to make sure that he's happy as well. So there's like really 2 or 3 objectives we're meeting this week. So if you can do PayPal donations through, again, I have to look at
RGV Aerial Team, www.paypal.com/PayPal me/RGV Aerial Team, all one word.
And then that'll be in the YouTube as well.
It is there.
A link to YouTube as well.
It's in the chat.
And something RGV has shared. There is an RGV Aerial on PayPal. That is not him. He is not RGV Aerial. So if you go into the PayPal app and you attempt to put in RGV Aerial Photography, you may have problems. I had problems last evening doing that. So ultimately, I used the link that Indian Star shared just a moment ago. So just something to keep in mind.
I also pinned the link to the chat, so it's gonna be displayed. It's gonna be highlighted on top, and so use that link. PayPal me/RGV Aerial Team. That one should take you straight to the correct link.
Oh, and one other thing to mention is that we are using PayPal right now directly, not YouTube and the other ones, because YouTube takes 2 to 3 months to basically have those funds be accessible. And so in order to make these flyovers happen this week, that's the direction we are going.
They also take a portion
PayPal.
of the money off the top where PayPal does not.
Yeah, that's about, 30%?
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
Yeah. But it's there is that convenience fee. That's what's interesting about YouTube.
But
It's
their
very
convenience
convenient.
fee is an inconvenience fee for us.
Yes, exactly. So Nate, I actually needed to jump back to the photos here. I wanted to ask you, while you're not potatoed, what is anything else that you wanted to talk about here at Massey's before we switch over to Sanchez and some other sites?
What I said before is I think they're going to move all of the non-static fire testing to Massey's. I think that's what Massey's is going to ultimately become, is a structural test site. And I mean, it opens the door so they can do structural tests whenever they want. They don't have to close the road, none of that, like they have to do down at launch site. And so, I mean, just looking at what's happening so far at Massey's, that's just what the story tells, is that's what it's becoming.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because it's test article. And with 25 here, we found out something that's bad news yesterday for 25.
Yes, we did.
The next 2 flights, do you want to tell what's going on with those next 2 flights?
Yeah, the documentation makes it clear that the next 2 flights after 24 were going to be starships that are not able to re-enter correctly, are not
survive, really.
Survivable. There we go. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And
they won't survive, or they're going in the drink?
Both.
They're anticipating they're going to burn up on re-entry. That's what they're anticipating. Yes.
That's no bueno.
So yeah, 26 and 27.
Yeah, they don't have any heat shield tiles, and that is 26 and 27.
No heat shield tiles and no flaps of any kind either.
Don't they they don't have chines either, do they?
That would be a booster, and the booster 9 does have chines.
Never mind.
So they do have a raceway close.
Yes, they do. That's right.
Raceway's not closed, but thank you.
No. The chines do. The chines do direct, the air to slow it down in a certain way, where at least the same kind of principle you could apply towards the aft section. So the raceway here, it sticks out a little bit and can basically help guide it to say, well, this is belly first, and well, they're not going to make it. The 304L stainless steel, it can take the heat, but not that much heat. So it's going to pretty much melt and disintegrate into who knows how many chunks, and it's going to be splashing down long before Hawaii. In fact, there was a picture of that. I think I've got here. Let me see.
Yeah, pictures in the documentation. It kind of shows the 2 separate, the area they expect 24, if it makes it through reentry, to splash down, versus the area they expect the other 2, which is well before Hawaii. their pieces to splash down. This is also most likely the reason they're going to vent as much liquid oxygen and liquid methane other than enough to blow it up when it hits the water during reentry or before reentry. That way they don't have an unexpected debris field from an explosion at height.
Yeah, so this one's interesting. This is the area that, Starship Ship 24 should be basically doing a splashdown. But technically, it could be anywhere in this yellow and green range. I suspect it's coming in from this way, but it should be coming in from this way. I'm not sure why it's got this large chunk up here that's kind of indicating it goes this way. But anyways, this is the section, the other starships. So 26 and 27, this will be the range of their debris field. So as long as they make it to orbit, this is where they're going.
So 25 has just become honestly, I think it's a sacrificial article to test all of that new GSE down there. So much like Ship 20, it may be full of FOD and all other stuff.
Yeah, so it's just a commissioning article. It's got engines and everything, which you don't normally go back and do cryo tests with the vehicle with engines. So this one's interesting because it's just for commissioning now. It's a spare. I think it always has been. It's the twin paradox at SpaceX. The twins don't seem to usually make it because they'll skip one. And in this case, they have.
Yes. And of course, 26 has the electric gimbling engines, just like Booster 9. So they're pairing similar ship and booster together.
Yeah, that's actually a really good thing. I was talking about this with Indian Star the other day. Specifically, the TVC. They're using basically hydraulic oils to manage that whole system. And that's a pollutant. You don't want to be throwing that in the ocean, even if it's going to be burning up in the atmosphere. It's still not the best thing to do. Whereas electric TVC, it's a lot more just steel and steel derived components, which there's going to be some interesting stuff in the documentation I didn't get quite to, but my idea is that a lot of the stainless steel will basically become iron fertilization for the ocean, which plankton just love. It'll just take a while to break down in the high salinity of the ocean. But yeah, moving on. We've got a interesting little bit of developments, at least along Richardson. So this is just along the Rio Grande. This is basically, I guess, a quick note. So the property owners here, the private property owners here, will be able to stay. But this one is SpaceX, so they get to stay regardless. And this is their new basically ramp for their boats. It's kind of an interesting location. They even have some jet skis there. But
they got a paddle boat there. That is a paddle boat right on the edge, like one of those two people get in.
Oh my gosh,
that's great.
I didn't even notice that. And this is just a little boat with an outboard, it looks like. But that paddle boat, that is hilarious. I did not even notice that.
Wow.
But yeah, this is not for public use. This is for SpaceX only, and the people they've chosen, like let's say federal officials or whoever else that they want to be able to use this. But right here we've got Raptor Roost, and then this would be the Outpost, which is for what is it called? Rocket Ranch. And then just up the road a little bit is Maria's Starship Station. So these are locations that you could be at by invite only for launch. I know that Maria specifically, she's going to be there tomorrow. I think it was like around 5 or 8 or so in the evening, and going to stay overnight because they are locking the roads down at midnight. You're not going to be able to go in or even really utilize this road at all because this will be county road that they'll lock down.
And by invite only, you mean that you can make reservations, like if you wanted to stay at Maria's station?
Yep.
Starship Station, you just need to contact her.
Yeah, so she's got the whole website there. Same thing with Rocket Ranch and the Outpost. Raptor Roost is a little bit more selective. It's invite only directly. And there's, I know with Lab, as far as Lab Padre, there is some basically perks that you can get. You'll have to contact Lab directly if you're, I believe, an elite member and above. So that's just something to note as well. And it's very selective because you can only have so many people there, or at least on the deck that's there. I know that Mauricio, you're headed there tomorrow, tomorrow.
Oh yeah, everything's creeping up real fast. Yeah, I'll be out there tomorrow and have to pick up credentials from SpaceX, even though I won't use most of the perks. But I'll still be getting that just in case. And yeah, I'll be out there at Raptor Roost. I'll be sleeping over and hoping for a launch.
So is that where all the official media people are going that SpaceX invited, is Raptor Roost, or you're just...
No. They're going off to South Padre Island, I believe, next to the was it amphitheater? That's what we've heard. Mauricio, you've got better info on this than I do.
I have heard.
Yes, so it's the amphitheater in Isla Blanca Park. That's where there's going to be a viewing station for the media only that are credentialed by SpaceX.
You will be credentialed, though, no?
Yes, but I won't be there.
Okay.
He chose to be over here instead.
Is where you're going to be, Mauricio, closer, potentially?
Yes, and for multiple reasons. We talked about it last night, why this is probably the best viewing spot as far as flexibility, because I would need to get out of there as soon as possible once it launches to head over to the airport. And that's not going to happen at Isla Blanca Park. It's going to be pretty hectic right after the booster touches down in the Gulf. It's going to take about an hour just to get out of the island. And I don't have that time to spare. Especially,
by the way, quick update. This is Isla Blanca Park, the amphitheater here. Just so that we're making sure everybody understands where this is at. I kind of realized that it's useful. So this is about 5 miles away. You'll be about 4 miles away, but it's just outside of the safety range here. I have actually a map. Where did it go? I guess it's not in this one. So yeah, there's a map that shows the area, and you're just basically at that road of Richardson, where it's the last place that only private property owners and their invited guests are allowed to be.
And something to note is that property is like the edge of the exclusion zone too.
Yeah.
The exclusion zone, basically on the other side of that road, you can't be there. It's close.
Yeah, even this road during everything, if the police or sheriff's department sees you on this, you basically have to be leaving because they'll kick you out. Because it is county road, or it can be called county road, they'll have control over that. So you pretty much are on the property. You can't leave, or actually you can leave, but you can't go through and, let's say, drive up Highway 4 to get to these locations because they are in control of that road.
Mauricio, are you excited?
It's going to be really exciting for Mauricio.
I mean, it's more of I get nervous, not just because of the plans that I have. I've never done this before, heading out to the Gulf. We talked about the flight plan. We talked about the details last night. It's just going to be, I'm excited, but there's a mix of emotions that comes with it as well. So,
Mauricio, pilot, been out there before?
I mean, he's flown over water and before, but since we're going to be 20 miles out, and I talked about the issues, and I don't really want to go too much into detail, but we will be purchasing with the funds that we acquired by the supporters and that we're really thankful for. We're going to be buying some life jackets, and
mini crickets,
just because we just want to be safe, because if we talked about it, if we have an engine failure out there over the water, we're not certain if we'll be able to make it back on land unless we have sufficient altitude for a good glide ratio to make it back to land.
Okay.
If anything, I kind of calculated it, and I need to recalculate things, but I think if we're 20 miles out and we're at about 10,000 feet, you know what, I'll crunch the numbers and I'll get back to you. But I came to a conclusion that we don't have enough distance to make it back to land. Basically, it came down to that. And yes, I might be a little bit over dramatic with this, but they have had several issues. I mean, there's always issues, especially with older aircrafts and how they're maintained. So it has been maintenance every so often. So we're just trying to be cautious and just trying to have the best possibilities of a successful flyover out there.
And we all just need to will you to make it across and do what you need to do and come back safely when you're doing that. So after the launch, we all need to just think positively for Mauricio, make sure that he gets there and comes back with photos that we want safely. At least that's what I think.
Agreed.
And just a quick note, for people that are wondering, we won't be flying during the orbital flight. We'll be flying after that TFR gets removed, the surface to unlimited TFR. That's when we're waiting for it to get removed, which should happen shortly after touchdown of the booster. So once that happens, we're pretty much heading to the airport and taking off.
That's
Yeah, it'll probably be taken off even before you get to the airport at that point, because it's pretty much that booster lands in the water. The TFR should basically be down. There's no more air restrictions for commercial flights and such. And so you'd be able to go through and view from a good distance the booster, and that'll be kind of an interesting view as a sideways booster in the water. I'm hoping we'll see it all in one piece, but that's always a question: is how many pieces will it be in? Hopefully, it's just mostly one big piece.
And so the TFR will be removed as soon as booster lands, or goes for a swim, or Starship.
Yeah, for this location, it should be.
Okay.
So earlier you saw that there's these little dots. This is the actual TFR. I went through and mapped it out. So if you just connect all the dots, that's the current TFR zone. There's also a Mexican TFR zone that Mauricio will be staying out of as well, because that one might not go away for a little while. So it'll be basically on the northern side.
So Mauricio, you have 8 minutes after launch to get to the booster, because that's when it looks like it's going to be in the drink.
And then the other question is that I keep asking myself this: how long is it going to take the booster to sink? You know, is it going to take a few minutes? Is it going to take a few hours? Are they going to? The other scenario is they're not going to sink it right away because they want to photograph it to have good data or images of the aftermath. And that's what I'm hoping for, because that's going to buy me some time to get out there. And I don't even think SpaceX knows at this point, because they even said that if it doesn't sink, they're going to shoot it.
They said that?
Well, they said they will do a lot of potentially other things. Like they said they might use a boat to basically push it, nudge it, or pull it to rotate it.
Grab a fin.
They might use 22 calibers on it or something. They might use explosives on it. They've numbered quite a few things that they could do to make sure that it sinks. In the past, the Falcon 9 has landed in the water, and it was supposed to explode or something. It didn't. So the Army came out with some C4, threw it on there, and blew it up because it was supposed to sink.
Well,
it becomes a maritime safety hazard otherwise.
It'll be pressurized though, right? All the way down. Correct?
Should be.
Yeah. So there's that as well. Okay. Should be interesting. I hope it lands in one piece, and I hope they don't mistreat it. I hope they bring it back.
I don't know what you'd be able to do with it. You could tow it around a little bit, but you're not going to be bringing that into the port because it's.
Off of it.
Oh yeah, like the data is important, and they actually have the ability to do that, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But it's going to be so much fun for Mauricio and everybody else who are down there.
Yeah,
and
the documentation.
Sorry,
yeah, that's okay. The documentation released yesterday makes it really clear they are not going to attempt to salvage the booster. One way or another, it sinks.
Yeah, I read that document.
Unfortunately,
as well.
So we're at Sanchez now, Thomas. Do we have any questions or anything? And y'all may have dealt with questions while I was trying to fix my mic issue.
We don't just have questions; we actually have lots of donations. So, Mauricio, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and start with the donations. Any issue?
No problem. Yeah, and they've been rolling in through PayPal, so I extremely appreciate that. Thank you so much for that.
And those of you who are donating in PayPal, I'm seeing your actual names. If you want your usernames to be there, would you mind putting it in the note field when you send in your donations? That way I'll read that off instead of your full name, or even just your first name.
Yeah, if you're going to read names, just use the first name. For most people, that's the best way to go.
Oh, yeah,
they'll know who they are.
Okay, Well, I'll start with this side. So we started off the donation train with Mr. James Wilson, who donated $10 and says, "Choo choo, airplane fuel isn't cheap." No, no, it's not. Then we have Jim Cavett coming in with $5 and says, "I'm on board." Paul Harris with a £1.99 says, "Go Rocket, go." JK Video came in with $20. Rocket Profit $20, he says for some fuel and for all of the flyovers. And then I want to say Kai, but it's spelled Kaj, so it could be Kaj. £5. Can you look? Oh, has a question, and then I'll leave that for Mauricio. Then Cranky Old Man actually came in with 2 donations back to back. $10 says go 724 ad Astra ad infinitum. And then another $10 donation that says drone fund, keep Mauricio in the air. That's right, keep Mauricio in the air. Rocket came in with $9.99. I am Groot with $9.99. And then, we want to welcome Nunn, who just became a RGV flight supporter. And then we have all these donations from PayPal. We have a $20 donation from Paul, a $10 donation from Ryan, who says, for flyover, drive over, drone replacement, or Sunny or Mauricio treat fund. Arthur donated $10 and says, fly Mauricio, fly. Julian donated $11.90 and says, some towards fuel, etc. Robert donated $95.51. David donated $19.40 and says, thanks for all the great work you do. Looking forward to Monday. So are we. James Cavett, whose last name I've said before, so I'd feel okay saying it again, donated $10 and says fuel cost. William donated $10. Rob donated $10 and says drone fund flyover donation, and then has a question. Don donated for multiple flyovers. He donated $25. Joel donated $25. Stephen donated $35.71. And those are all the donations that have come in at this particular point. Thank you all so much for your donations. We are going to get him a drone, and we're going to get us a 3rd flyover, hopefully. Might be just in my dreams, but still.
I had 2 more donations here from Paul, $11.80 donation for the flyover fund for multiple flyovers. Michelle, $40 for the flights. Thank you so much. And that's it. That's all the donations I have on my end. Let's see here. We do have questions. And before I get to the questions, we're extremely thankful for the donations. They do help out a lot. And in addition to that, we'll be giving the pilot sort of a tip after the donations, so that because he gets extremely accommodating, we actually booked the whole week of backup dates to be able to have the better possibility of doing flyovers the whole week. If the weather doesn't permit, we have backup dates. If the launch doesn't happen on Monday, we still fly, and we still have more backup dates to do these flights. So thank you so much for that. And the questions, let's see here. We have the first one here from Sandy. Is it really 3x3 thrust pod configuration? Elon talked about it being 3x6 in the future also. I think he's referring to a Massey's. When you're speaking about that, Thomas?
Yeah, so let me go back to Massey's again real quick to show the view here. So the current setup is 3 sea level and 3 vacuum optimized engines for a Starship like Ship 24, 25, 26 through 27. Pretty much everything all the way up through 30s. We've got ships into the early 30s.
I think 31 is where our ships go to, I think.
At least. And it's going to be a little while, I think, before we hop over to 3 more vacuumized engines. But the reason why you want these to begin with, and Elon said it was quite obvious, and the fact is that the ship itself, once it's going off the booster, its thrust to weight ratio is about 1. So if it was in the atmosphere on Earth, it would be starting off with a hover. And you basically want to reduce that to reduce gravity loss, but it's already going at higher speeds, going kind of almost orbital at that point in this large trajectory, but it still is mass that you lose out on. And then there's 2 other things that you do. So you increase the thrust with the version of engine. So right now it's at version 2, and you're going to go to version 2.5, which will go through and give it another 20 extra tons of thrust per engine. And so we'll have a total of, those 9 engines at an extra 20 tons of thrust each, which is pretty good. You're looking at 180 tons there, which will really help out in giving you that maximum payload capacity of 150 metric tons that they really need to hit for Starship in order to be multiplanetary. Like, that's kind of their goal, is to make sure it's mass capable, as cheap as it is to do mass manufacturing and production and everything else. But really, it's that engine that the engines are the biggest component to any rocket, really. Like, this is pretty much I would say it. I say this in one way, but it's more than that. But it's basically a giant tank with a payload capacity, and the engines are the most critical part of it. And I say that, well, they did actually provide us on their document with like almost a schematic view from their own renderings, and this is a enhanced version. It's not the best version, obviously. It's not the original, but I did what I could with it, just to go through and show there's a lot more than just the engines. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. It's a very complicated machine. There's actually not too many surprises that we saw in here. Like, I think this one yellow pipe was the only thing that stood out, that most people like Jax and other 3D artists were like, oh, okay, so that's how they're doing that. Like, that was it. For the most part, everything else was fairly well known and understood. So that's pretty useful to kind of gauge that we're able to keep track of most of the elements here. Is there any other questions that we have, Mauricio?
We'll touch on a couple more here. Let's see here. From Stephen Lewis, does the FAA license cover just S-24, B-7, or any of the ships for 5 years?
Really, it covers 26 and 27 in a way, but really the launch license is an all-encompassing. You have a type of ship that you're going to be launching with a range of fuels that you're looking at. You have to update it. Let's say if they decided to go to 1,800 1,800 tons of fuel for, let's say, the tanker variant, but it will be very close to what they already have. So it's just a small little point of notice to the FAA that we're going to change this, and it's not anything huge. It's not like they need to relicense or reissue anything. It's just that their launch license has a 5-year period that will basically be effective. However, they will be able to go through, do extensions and amendments. That's something that's typical for a launch license.
All right, and the last question that we can touch on is 55 Chevy Guy asked, who negotiates Mexican TFR zone, FAA or SpaceX?
That'll be FAA, because it's supposed to be through basically the government level. So the government has to talk to the other government, specifically Mexico. So SpaceX talks to FAA, FAA talks to Mexico. That's why the TFR was so early, and then they had a second TFR that is being put in place for this week. And it's exact same coordinates. It's just well in advance. And that's because they're communicating through another layer, and that's going to basically slow things down. So they schedule in advance for those.
All right, and we had a couple more, but we can move on to Sanchez here.
Yeah,
I'm just looking through the photos and keeping it kind of going here on those. This is such a big one to talk about.
Yes, it is.
So, do you want to start off, Nate?
Well, we have the beginning of the next Mega Bay.
Yeah, and do you know where the other part is where this is from?
Yeah, that is definitely coming from the Cape, from Roberts Road.
They kind of just destroyed any hopes of that Mega Bay building being done this year. However, I was reading an article this morning that actually came out like last night or so, but it is very prevalent to what we're looking at here. So it's from Eric Berger, the Rocket Report. He was basically going through and stating how SpaceX has possibly, based off of just some rumors here, leased part of High Bay 1 at NASA's VAB. It basically says, last August, NASA issued an agency announcement asking for industry proposals to lease vehicle assembly building High Bay 1 at Kennedy Space Center. This is the same iconic building in Florida where NASA stacks its Space Launch System rocket. In November, NASA selected proposals. However, spokesman Patty Belling declined to name the winner. And then it goes on to say that Starship processing is what they're looking at doing. He brings up this because two people have told him, this is Eric Berger, that SpaceX won the competition to use the high bay for its Starship program. And so the idea here is that they're going to use it for vehicle integration mostly. But the question that kind of comes up is if they are allowed to do hot work and building the vehicles at the VAB, that would be a game changer as well. But if it's just integration of payloads and all that stuff, it's still pretty big there. But I think that there's a chance that they could do more than just that. It's just you have to go through and talk to your to the owner of the building, specifically NASA, to do hot work. There's issues with doing hot work because SLS, for instance, uses the solid rocket motors, which don't like having sparks being around in the same building.
That is not good.
Yeah. So you would have to work something out with NASA to say, well, we'd like to do hot work except when you're doing this. And maybe that could be a thing, maybe not. But at least for vehicle integration, Eric Berger is believing that that's going to be happening. And that's pretty big news. And so this isn't quite needed as much as it used to be. So I think they really refocused priorities towards Boca Chica.
There's another nice little Easter egg right there on the left side of your image. The tower lifting lugs also made their way back here, which is very interesting. Maybe a sign of things to come soon once some more Corps of Engineer situations take place.
Yeah, so that means we're looking at really having that integration tower as soon as the Army Corps of Engineers approval comes through, exactly what you said.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that because we have the pads still kind of there. You can see them here. These would be the 3 pads that they were using before. Wow. And technically they were using this section in here as well. But this one's quite occupied, and I can't remember what's what. But they do have the concrete and the pads down, and they could obviously do it here or over here or anywhere, really, that there's any room to do it at Sanchez to build additional pads for integration tower components. And this is huge.
It may be an outlandish thing to speculate on, but they have basically a full tower waiting, and they could totally barge that thing a few pieces at a time this way too.
Yeah.
No signs of that. That's definitely just wild speculation, but it was one of those things that could be a possibility.
Speaking of barges and wild speculation, and it has to do with the high bay that's basically here now from Roberts Road in Florida. They are looking at doing transfers of starships and boosters to Florida, and I think that's the direction that they will do, not just one, but multiple vehicles over at Florida that were basically built and tested in Boca Chica. So that's another huge element that really needs to kind of be mentioned is they will possibly just be using Boca Chica as their primary construction site for a while until they ramp up the production and then start up their own either Mega Bay or use the VAB or something. But whatever they're doing, they are basically going to be holding off for a little while. So their priority is just getting this going and producing it instead of spending a lot of money all at once.
Probably smarter in the long run for them financially.
Absolutely.
Oh, Thomas.
Yeah.
Do you mind going back to that other photo, please? You see the The water deluge pipes down there, those silvery, yeah, and then those brown things. Okay, in Transporter 7's launch, they had white ones that looked very similar to those rusted stands in which the water came from. And I was wondering, I actually have a screenshot for you. I was going to send it to you, but it was quite late at night, so I didn't send it. But I was going to ask you if you thought that they were for the same thing, or could be the same
Very
thing.
well could be, yeah. So is it some sort of rainbird system that you're talking about?
I don't know because I don't know, but I can show you the picture and you can tell me.
Yeah, please do. We kind of looked at something with Chrome Kiwi on another mission. I think it was at Slick 40 that had an element that we'd seen before, and I don't see it now. But it was basically two I-beams that have some posts welded together. Oh, wait, here it is. This is the one right here. This could basically be part of the Rainbird system. So we saw something very similar. Oh, wait, you got it. This is the exact same thing you're talking about. Nice. So let me bring that up.
I'm right?
Well, I was thinking you were talking about something else, but yeah, these
That's
are the exact same pieces right here, and then those other stands, I'm not sure, but these are yeah what I'm mentioning here. So they've got the Rainbirds, two I-beams, and then they're stuck together, and this is looking very similar.
And the one on the left is a mirror image of the one on the right. It just because of the venting and the water, you can't really tell what it looks like.
Yeah, it's at night and there's that bright light. So, but yeah, that's a really good example and idea of what this could be. These could also be part of a Rainbird system or even part of these. So they could basically be what these are sitting on, which would be very interesting because it's like, well, if these are up higher and they're not buried, or maybe these are buried, who knows? Then you have a very different direction you're going. So these could either be for transport, which this is kind of overkill. You just throw it on the SBMT and you're good.
I thought
Or really,
I thought we said they wouldn't be buried because they have feet on them.
well, you can bury it with the feet on, but you have to have additional strength. Like you have to basically have concrete pads, massive pads underneath with rebar in order to hold these up, because you're putting a lot of pressure on these 6 feet. It is spread out a little bit because it has 6 feet, but you still need to have concrete pads underneath. Otherwise, your weight will just drop it into the soil even deeper, and that might not be something you want. So you end up with either these are partially buried or these are for transport, but these ones are the kind of the mystery item. We understand that these are the top plates, and I believe these ones up here have been flipped over because there's holes on some of them, but they are no longer present. It's like, that's magic. Well, if it's flipped over, it's obviously not going to be showing the holes on the now that was the top, now is on the bottom. But from what we can go through and kind of determine, they have basically one side with holes like this. So we'll go with one plate, and the other side with holes will go to another plate. But a particular one like this might be kept open in order to basically go through and do a single plate for both. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how they do stuff like this, unless they add the additional elements here. So these pipes right here are called nipples. And we've actually seen that in here that they've capped the tops of these ones off. So they don't want to get debris inside of them while they're being installed. That's one element that we've noticed. It's pretty common. You will see a bunch of other pipes at the launch site like that as well, at least one big one. But yeah, it's really interesting that they've got this part done. And I was looking at a pipe that was like this. There was a black one, and here it is.
Thomas, we have lots of pixelation as you're moving those around.
Well, I'll stop moving around then. See if that helps.
Okay.
Is it coming back?
Yeah, no, it's there now. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll stop moving here. But see this pipe right here. This will be going on top of the water deluge tanks. So there's 4 white tanks. Those are currently going to hold water, and it looks like they're going to go for a compressed gas nitrogen system. But this is very minimum, so I'm pretty sure they're going to upgrade this even further. And basically, this will be on the very top. So this will be pointed down for each of these spots going into the tank. you can see on the launch site, you'll see they've taped up these basically holes where it would be attached to. And then here we have another part of the deluge system. So just like the other ones that had these nipples that are sticking out, this one's thinner. It needs to really squeeze in between everything else if it's going to be buried. And that seems to be what the size of pipe would indicate, is that they're going to bury them. So let me move down. Is the pixelation good?
It is bueno.
Okay. So yeah, the very similar system to these, but it's just a lot thinner. We'll zoom out again real quick so you can kind of compare the two. Very much a different system. So it's kind of recapping on that, but still very important critical infrastructure to protect your assets long term.
Lolo got us some good pictures of what I showed you a picture of in the dark. He got in the daytime.
Oh, nice.
Here you go. Lolo's our friend. Lolo always comes in a pinch, man. He's the best.
Yeah, you can see this one here. It's got the 3 pipes, 2 I-beams, and the Rainbirds on both sets. Still looking for the that large 6-foot stand to see where they have something like that anywhere really, because that one's still the mystery item. Nate, what do you think on all the water deluge?
Nate just stepped away for a quick second.
Just wrong timing. Sorry, Nate.
He still can't hear you.
I know, but I should apologize for calling him out when he's not there.
Fair enough.
Okay, so
that Rattersat picture, if you want to see it from Flickr.
Oh, I'm good on that. Thank you. We it's the same, basically I-beams as we just showed. However, we do have ground shots as well. I'd like to go through and look at in just a moment. But if there's anything else that jumps out to you or Mauricio on this side of Sanchez, definitely shout it out.
Did you see the ring structure on the other end at the top of the screen? That one.
Oh, yeah, the one. It's not here. It's not this one. It's
no, that one. That one.
This one right here.
Yep. What is that?
This looks like a transport stand for a ship.
It's not the one from. No, it's not the one from there. KSC.
I think that one's more to the right. Let me pull up another image here. That should be this one here. That's the KSC transport stand for a booster. But yeah, moving up to this section up here, we've got this new kind of mystery item. It's obviously been wrapped in kind of some plastics, so it's harder to tell exactly what shape it is. So it could be just a ring on top of a flat ring. Nate is back with us here. So sorry, I called you out just a moment ago and you weren't there. I wanted to ask you if there's anything else on the water deluge system that you'd like to cover.
I'm going to make an assumption since I stepped away that y'all hit everything. I mean, you can see where some of the stuff's beginning to take some shape. I mean, the Y piece there, you can see it's got a taper, and I was glancing as everything was going, so I'm pretty sure everything was covered.
All right. So we haven't covered anything else really in this area. Is there, besides the things you've mentioned before, anything else that you want to hit up on?
2 booster stands that they're upgrading. We still don't know exactly what the upgrades are going to be. We've got our Mickey Mouse ears. There's some thoughts of what the Mickey Mouse ears might be for, but we don't really know for sure.
Yeah, see if I can show those real quick on the ground side. So those are the Mickey Mouse ears. And they've done it to all 3 transport stands so far.
Yes.
Well, not all 3. Technically, they're still working on Booster 7's transport stand that way, but they're getting close to doing that there as well.
And so far, we just have plates, and that's it. We don't have... go to the aerial shot of that area, Thomas, if you could. If you zoom in...
Let me get a better image because this one's zoomed quite a bit out. There we go. That should be much better definition there.
So you can look at the two transport stands, and you can see that Booster 7 stand has its clamps still in place, whereas the stand that already has the new stand, I guess you would say, they still not actually installed the clamps. So they've got the slides in place, but they don't have the clamps themselves. And
So Booster 7 is on the left, and the one you're talking about without the clamps is on the right, correct?
The right, yes.
This is 7's here.
Is that 7's?
Yeah.
So they've taken 7's apart. Okay, so the new stand is on the left. So there's a little bit of thought that maybe the Mickey Mouse ears has something to do with the new way of clamping the booster in place. Because right now it's manual. You can see on the new stand, you can see all the bolts on top. I think each clamp has 6 bolts that they have to tighten down to actually secure the booster, and that's all by hand.
And those are Max Q's pink. Those pink things was what he was pointing out the last time, right? That
I see them as red, but yes,
pink, red, pink, yeah. And the crosses on the ground, are those the stabilization pins?
Yep,
they are.
Interesting.
Yep.
And by the way, we do have Jax joining us. I was thinking his name at least 3 times in my head, so I guess that helped.
Hey, how are you?
Welcome, Jax. We're doing good. We've gone into some rabbit holes. Might need to save us here, but we're having a lot of fun.
I like how Thomas said "we" as well.
Okay, it's a royal we, so it's really
I understood
me.
it. I take it with pride, my friend. Don't worry. Was there anything in this place that you wanted to point out, Jaxie, that we may have missed?
I don't believe so. I was listening in a little bit. I saw you mentioned the new Mega Bay, the signs of a new tower, some of the transport stand stuff. That's kind of the most interesting stuff this week, in my opinion. While we're at Sanchez,
I just recognized some Mega Bay parts that are the Z-girt. That's going to be the exterior cladding, so it's going to be gray with white interior structural steel. That's going to be cool.
It's not going to match.
It's not going to match, but it's going to look cool on this one.
They got plenty of gray paint.
You were saying,
keep going, Jax.
Yeah.
Can we head over to the Ship 26 area out of the rocket garden?
Yes, we can. There we go.
So I know one of the interesting things we've seen start going together is Ship 26 has all 6 of its Raptor engines now, 3 sea level, 3 center engines, and as I believe you already discussed, Ship 26 is anticipated to fly on Flight 2. And you can see a piece of the engine shielding just off to the upper left. And that shielding, you can see the gaps for the 3 gimbaling engines. It's pretty cool. So it's coming along. It's getting outfitted, and installation of those Raptor engines, like properly integrating them, is likely nearing completion if we're seeing the shielding go on.
Well, it's interesting. Is I call this like the Raptor installation and weighing station. So like they're getting the weight of the vehicle. And it's interesting because they're going through doing all of the fit and finish stuff here as well now. So usually they would have done this in high bay or something like that, but they're doing it here. So I'm wondering if they're trying to get the exact dry weight of one of these really stripped down vehicles. Would that make sense?
I'd imagine that's a pretty useful metric for them to have. And yeah, hopefully once Ship 24 and Booster 7 fly, we should hopefully see Booster 9 and Ship 26 come out to the pad to conduct their own static firing campaigns pretty quickly. It's not going to be slowing down. We might not have a launch within a couple weeks after the first one, but it's not going to be another 2-year wait.
Fingers crossed, hopefully.
All goes well Monday.
If all goes well, yeah.
If Monday happens because of what happened most recently.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Talk about that.
So they've got the stairs. That's probably the first time we've seen it from above. Those were the ones that were at the launch table that they installed and then they subsequently removed. It looks like they've got additional components for the stairs. Oh, I think I've got it in a different image now. Should be this area over here. There was some additional stair components Well, now I've lost where they were, but there's some additional components floating around here somewhere around where I'm at.
One thing, these photographs are so like clear and vivid. It's amazing. It's like the colors are popping. It's almost like I keep thinking that they added stuff because of all this color, but it's not. It's just Mauricio's amazing camera and Mauricio's images.
Nice, clear day for once.
Especially after 2 weeks of rain and
Yeah.
cloudiness.
Yeah, it is just super clear. I mean, the detail is amazing. Oh, this is actually kind of interesting. These manholes. We've seen similar ones over at the launch site, so maybe they're using this again for storage for manholes that will be used at the like next to the integration tower.
Wouldn't they just cover the holes?
That's what they are, basically. It's a manhole with a cover, and it's a plate that really is kept down.
Yep, I meant the thing on the left, the concrete thingamabobber, whose name I can't remember at this moment.
Vault. It's a vault.
That's it. Wow, I have Thomas.
So, yeah.
I have your disease.
Ah, yes. So yeah, they've got the top plate cover with the manhole. Basically, would be attached to this as well, so it covers the entire thing, and that's just a great way of accessing everything. Anyways, looking around, see if there's anything else to jump out on the at least the aerial views here.
Do we have any idea what the white
I was just going to ask you.
Home-shaped thing is?
So you see that one, and there's another white piece that's smaller. Looks like it could fit into it. It's towards the top where we were looking at the booster stands. I don't know if that's even in this view, but I'm curious.
These?
No, to the right, up top. Now go. You keep going straight. Just go straight now. To the left, smidge. That's it. Does that go?
This
inside?
is the crane. This is the.
Oh, that's the
this
BFC.
Yeah, the BFC crane. It's just everything on this pad you pretty much can ignore, except for the concrete pieces right here, which will be useful for them for drainage. But
So
other than that,
that white circle is not part of the crane then? Not that
this
one.
is
Not that
this
one.
is
The other one.
part of the crane. This is probably not part of the crane because this is plastic. So
How can you tell it's plastic? They don't have anything
ground shots.
plastic there. Oh.
Yeah, ground shots.
So
Just something wrapped.
yeah, I'm looking at the wrong site. Let me go back again here. It's actually at the top.
It's at the top and then you scroll down?
Yeah, I'm top and scrolling down now. I'm realizing it's probably at the bottom or something because I'm completely missing it. There is a lot of details to go through here, so I'm going to actually make quick work of those as well.
There are 316 ground photos from yesterday alone, not including the flyover photos.
Yeah, now I'm completely missing where it's at. I know that I saw it in the ground shots. I'm just probably passing by.
You're looking at the one that I zoomed in on yesterday, right? Because it's on that particular line right there in the center. To the left. The center line to the left. One more.
Oh my gosh, right there. Yeah, I'm just expecting to be taller than it is.
Yep.
And that's it right there.
Where?
So you can see
that? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that's the plastic.
We don't know what it is.
We don't know that that's plastic. We just know that it's wrapped.
Yes, no. I'm saying that the wrap is plastic. So yeah, we're looking at the plastic wrap. We don't know what's underneath. We don't. It's a cylinder shape at least, because this could be pulled tight, or it could have something of a chopped off cone. It's just hard to say exactly what the underlying shape really is, but it is kind of interesting. It's one of those things that we'll keep watching for and see what happens. And something appears and we're like, wait, what's that? Where did that come from? Oh, it's that thing. That's something that often happens. But we did actually have some other good shots of some new infrastructure that had come in. Let's see. This is a good spot to start. So this has been labeled, I believe, as flame diverter. So a lot of steel plates and other parts are flame diverter. And it's all been rerouted from Florida. So these ones are interesting because they are specifically have these screw-on parts where you can basically put on, let's say, rainbirds or something that would be aimed inwards. So if
I didn't notice they were threaded last night.
Yeah, let me see if there's a little bit better of a shot for the threads. There it is. So yeah, these are the beginning of the thread starts down here and works its way all the way up. So it is threaded. That's a pretty nice feature for probably doing something like rainbirds or something like it. And then next to it, we have part of the chopsticks. So this is basically, say that again?
Nope, go ahead. You're about to say it.
You're probably going to say the correct word. I was going to probably call it the wrong one.
I was just going to say it's just one of the cylinders to support the landing bar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to call it a viscous damper, but that's not quite right. It might be part of that system, but yeah, it's a hydraulic and pneumatic activated system. But it basically lifts and then catches the booster, and then eventually we're hoping Starship. But on that one, Jax, do you want to go over what we learned with the paperwork yesterday on catching starships?
Yeah, well, it's SpaceX over the past week or so has gone rampant with releasing information, and there's a lot of new things we've learned. Curiously, when discussing the tower in some paperworks, they have only stated that their plan is to catch the Super Heavy. Now, that's only explicitly stating Super Heavy. That's not to say they can't be considering doing the Starship at a later time. But it just still doesn't seem to be something that's set in stone for them. It's a difficult task. Like with the flip that the Starship does, there's a lot more introduced into the equation. So it may make sense why they're being hesitant on saying we are catching the ship. In terms of this first test flight of Starship, Ship 24 is not coming back to the launch site. We don't expect a ship to come back to the launch site for quite some time from here. And touching on what they expect to happen with Ship 24, I don't know if you've touched on that quite yet, have you?
No, we haven't quite gotten to the interesting elements of 24's reentry.
I don't know if you want to hold off on that until the launch site, or...
Well, you brought it up now. We could talk about it now or at the launch site. There isn't Zach today, so probably should hold off on till the launch site now I'm thinking about it.
Will you be able to stay with us till we get there, Jaxie?
Who knows? Maybe. We'll see how interesting this gets.
Wow. Pressure's on, Thomas.
All jokes aside, it'll be an interesting topic.
It will be for sure.
Wow. 26 is like the silver bullet. I'm actually pretty optimistic about 26, but it's just funny that it doesn't have any real capabilities unlike 27 for payloads.
So what are you optimistic about for 27 then?
Well, 26 and 27, it's that there isn't much that can go wrong as far as, let's say, flight dynamics goes, because they don't have a whole lot of aero surfaces to catch things on or maybe potentially screw things up. Hopefully it works out fine on Monday. But there's a lot of people who are like, it's only held down by 3 points and you're holding the rest of this down by really the forces of thrust, of launch. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, anything could go wrong on that first flight. I'm hoping it doesn't go wrong at all, and it makes it basically to the belly flop. We've already talked about that before, but we'll bring up that later.
That's why we say in thrust we trust.
Yep. I love that. All right. I think I'm good for Sanchez for now. Do you want to go ahead and move over to the build site? Will we have Jax?
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
So let's see. We could probably start off here. This would be a good one to mention. So this is the sheet piles that they've been working on for a little while now, and they basically have a large pit or excavation that they're really pulling through. And the excavators are the long arm excavators, so they're going pretty deep here. They haven't gotten that far yet, as far as I can tell based off the ground photos. I was looking at a 20-foot ladder, and it was only about 10 feet in so far, and we might see the ground photos on that. But the interesting element is that it's almost in line, but it's about what Philakid had spotted, about maybe like 5 degrees off. But it's almost in line with the current Star Factory. And you can also see there's a huge new element happening right here. So these footings are similar to what they did for Star Factory over here, but they're a little bit bigger. So that means one of two things. Either the building itself is going to be holding a lot more weight, or it's going to be just kind of a smaller building. Those kinds of things would say that you might need a larger footing. You're going to have a lot of weight in the building anyways. So the other part is that the foundation size does actually match with Star Factory. So one area you can kind of see here is this kind of weird line that's being drawn in the concrete. That's where they've done basically some, what's it called? Wet saw. They basically go through and use a wet saw to cut the concrete. And there's a better view of that. Maybe it's this one. No, it's not that one, but it's close enough. Anyways, that is the same dimensions pretty much. I'll have to scroll down really quick, because I do want to see that. There it is. This is the one. So you can see that line is just a straight line all the way through. I think this is either marked and hasn't been cut yet, but it pretty much would say the foundations would be a little bigger, or they're just going to cut the concrete all the way over to here. So this is where it should meet up, would be about this point. So it looks like they're still going to remove this concrete. And then the foundations over here are kind of interesting. So what I was looking at last night was the pads of the current Star Factory will be on the outside of the conduit that they're running here. So this is the electrical and some data, but mostly electrical conduit here. And they'll put basically pads all probably right in here. This is going to be a really awkward spot actually because of the two things, but they'll probably put a pad right in here that will be the outside wall. And so these are the inside portions, which you should have like a bridge crane or something going on here. And I was kind of thinking about this, and a slight epiphany hit me, is that we have tent 1 and 2 that still have active production of parts. It's very minimal, but that needs to go somewhere. And it might go to this new extension of this building or just a separate building. We're not quite sure if this is going to become an alleyway, or they're going to connect the two buildings together. So either Star Factory grows, or it's going to be Star Factory A and B. And this is just going to be a little Star Factory or Star Factory Mini. What do you think about that, Jax?
Yeah, I mean, it's they're definitely building something. They're in kind of a pickle right now because they sped up production, and it's not necessarily feasible to expand the Star Factory towards the tents because everything that the tents are full. They don't have anywhere to put that stuff. So that may be why we're seeing them stack things so fast right now. Yeah, it makes sense why they're expanding in any possible way they can. We know that recently they installed, I think, about 4 new bridge cranes inside of the Star Factory. So they're if they're doing an addition onto this building instead of a separated portion, it shouldn't be super hard to switch over production into that extra part.
Yeah, it's amazing how they've just continued to pick up production. Back in January, we thought maybe they were about to begin pulling tents down because of the way things were moving, and now they're just stuffed full of everything.
Yeah, they had a ramp up of production because of Star Factory, and I think the other element is if Roberts Road is going to be put on a bit of a hiatus until they can ramp up there, really we're looking at the production for Florida as well as Boca Chica right here for Starbase. Like, they're basically building everything for both locations, which makes sense to like why they're ramping up so much. And like this would be one thing I'm kind of looking at is this building itself, that it doesn't quite show how large it's going to be. But one element that really stands out is this area right here is now, looks like, leased by SpaceX. So this property was owned basically by a private individual, and now it's been leased, it looks like, by SpaceX. Because I looked at the county records, and there's still no updates of SpaceX owning it. So it'd have to be a lease, because it won't be directly reflected in the county records like that.
What if it's a subsidiary of SpaceX? One of their other business names.
Well, no, this is a private individual. I'll just say his name is Keith, at least the first name that shows on the records, and he owns other properties in the area. But the interesting part is, like, he went through, kept this managed for such a long time, and then finally, over the past about year or 8 months or so, it's just basically been left to sit by itself. And they even made a path to it at one point so he could access it, because it was landlocked by all of SpaceX's other construction. And well, now it's basically been flattened and leveled out, and it's being regraded here. Which is interesting, is that, like, this kind of indicates that it could go all the way up to this point, as far as the size of, let's say, this star factory. Like, this is off by a little bit, but it depends on how or what they're doing with this. It could not really matter if they're off by 5 degrees for this, if it's just going through creating a pit. But one of the interesting parts is they're just constantly dumping out water. They've got generator or pumps, just one here, one there. Like, I think it was like 5 of them that somebody counted at one point. Actual generators and tanks over here, but yeah, these are the pumps. Mauricio is actually out doing the ground photos back there. And I'll actually just show that real quick. So we're doing the photos a little bit backwards. Where was it? Here. So this is one of the photos. It was really muddy and lots of water out there, right, Mauricio?
Why, yes, Thomas, it was very muddy.
I guess we lost him there, or he's muted. But yeah, there he is. Oh, that's Nate.
me.
Never mind.
I was laughing at Indian Star.
It wasn't me.
But yeah, he was saying that how he was walking through the water. And he's like, why is there so much water? And then he looked over, and there's this, just constantly pumping out water. And that's just from the groundwater that's inside of the pit itself. That's why they did the sheet piles. So in order to keep the water out from the water table level, you have to do sheet piles like this. It'll slowly want to accumulate back in, but it's more difficult to do that. They've got these at least 25 feet down, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's about right. They were probably around 25 feet long each sheet when they were picking them up.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are like a little bit longer, maybe by 5 feet or so. So it's like 27 or 30 feet deep for a couple of these. So it's like every third one, but it's just to give it more foundation to hold on to. So it's not going to be super deep. But it is just an interesting element to look at, is that all of this area is really, I think, is going to be a building, and this will probably be part of it. I joke about the boring tunnel idea, because it's like, yeah, you could. And it's really exciting and fun to think about, like, a boring tunnel here at Starbase. But this doesn't say that right now. It says this is going to be a Star Factory Part 2 or B, because they like to use the letters instead of the numbers for the buildings.
Here's a thought. And could they want to dip parts for some reason, like dip rings for some reason?
What do you mean,
Like, could
dip
they be,
them?
like, in a lot of different metal manufacturing, at different points you will etch.
Did he die?
He did. I think he muted himself.
I muted myself.
You said
But in different manufacturing, sometimes, especially with metal, they'll want to etch or do things to the metal, and they have to have vats to do that. Could they be wanting to, make something to help clean the rings as they're making them, or the stainless steel? And this is, they're digging a deep hole so they can have a vat. I don't know. Just something to speculate on.
That's a good idea. That
Yeah.
if they're going through and doing a chemical process and chemically treating either metals or components themselves, because let's say they have a lot of material that they have to do, this would make sense to have something like that. And it doesn't, as I mentioned earlier, this doesn't have to say that the foundation of whatever is in here has to match up with this foundation right now, because you could basically make it smaller than this. It's not going to be the same size, I would suspect, as a ring. So this is 9 meters, about right here. So it's about the width of my mouse. And that one almost fits. So it could be that you could fit in like rings inside of here, but I don't think that would be quite the case quite yet. I'll have to see more evidence of it. But the chemical bath, more than certainly, they could do chemical baths for all sorts of components.
All we need is the OxyClean guy.
All right, Jax, let's go ahead and move over to the ring yard.
Yes,
So
Jax,
just
let's
jumping
do
right
that.
over.
Yeah. So, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff moving quickly. We'll start in the lower left, where you have a single ring doing nothing. To the right of it, you have a single ring doing nothing. Just above it, you have a single ring doing nothing.
But
And
this is
above
an
that,
interesting
you have-
ring.
Can we get to
It's
the
an
rings that do
interesting
something?
ring doing nothing.
Oh, we'll touch on that ring in a little bit once we move over to some ground photos.
Okay.
If we go right up to the top right, I think that'd be the best location to start. Can you zoom in just a little bit? I believe that is part of Booster 11's methane tank. That's the.
Yeah, let me actually switch over to
Oh.
a more high resolution image, because I'm realizing it's like pixelated and we've got like the clearest possible images. So switching around the angles here. So that's the one you were looking at. And that was Booster 11's, you said, methane tank?
They might have moved some stuff. That has you can see the stabilizer point for the chopstick there.
Yeah.
And right now they're kind of being sneaky. They have that section for both Booster 11 and Booster 12 out in the ring yard.
Ooh.
So you can see. Actually, I have no clue where it is. Why did I say that? It's somewhere out there.
Could be
there's
this
a booster. It might be that one, yeah. You can see there's a booster thrust dome with the center 13 engine mounts right there. That'll be for Booster 15. It's a lot of Super Heavy
wow.
boosters right now. Yeah, off to the right of it, you have the mid-lock section, so that makes up the majority of the liquid oxygen tank for Ship 29. You can actually see the...
You meant
the
left.
Oh, did I say right?
Yeah, I was like, there's nothing here. And I'm like, okay, so left here.
His other right.
Trying to go
you've
fast.
You've got the Thomas.
That's the Canadian left.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just above it, you have the common dome sleeve for Booster 14, and the common dome separates the methane tank from the liquid oxygen tank. That's been getting a lot of attention on Ship 24 and Booster 7 since yesterday afternoon, with the flight termination system being installed. Just above that, you have garbage, and
SN8, Booster 8.
Yep, that's
Garbage.
that section right there is the sleeve for that thrust dome. That's Booster 15's aft dome sleeve. So those two, in some period of time, will be mated together. That was a poor way of saying it, but
They're made for each other.
And you
yeah, they're
said
made
it
for
right.
each other. Yeah. So the ring yard's very full, and they're working very far ahead on their vehicles. There are a lot of tank sections. A lot of people I've seen mentioning that they're working further ahead on the ships compared to the boosters. And while I do think that's true, when it comes to the boosters, and more specifically the tank sections of the boosters, because they're such simple sections, like they're really just rings with internal reinforcements, the vertical stringers, they get made pretty late. Like when they assembled Booster 10, they were producing the ring, and a day later, like they were building them as they needed them. They weren't building anything ahead of time. And that was a pretty interesting thing to see them do. I don't think it was the most efficient for what they were doing, but they proved that they were able to do it.
And then didn't they stack it very quickly shortly thereafter when they were ready?
Yeah, they were moving pretty quickly. They were building as they needed, and that's one of the nice things about the Star Factory. It's that ring production and getting those rings built, it doesn't appear to be as much of an issue anymore.
This is 10,
and
isn't it?
That's an abandoned section that I'm pretty sure didn't. I'm speculating that it didn't pass quality control. It was abandoned a few months ago.
But was it originally intended for 10?
I think it was 11 or 10. I think 11.
Because I was just zoomed out. And I'm like seeing booster 8s for a dome, and I'm like, oh, this is booster 8's garbage. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that 11 one, it was underdeveloped, and then they stopped working on it. It was around the same time we saw some other stuff get scrapped, so I'm wondering if they just had maybe a more widespread issue that popped up. Whatever, it was a while ago, and it's been seemingly resolved, so not too much of a concern.
Hey, you've got a lot of single rings that are doing nothing.
A lot of single rings. And speaking of single rings, can we switch over to the ground photos? There's one looking straight on into the high bay.
Oh, that's a good one.
I believe it's up from where you are, yeah.
This one right here? Or that's the Mega Bay?
Yeah, it's directly into the high bay. The one on the right. So, like I was saying, speaking of single rings, you can see there's a crane doing something off to the left. And I believe the last time I was on the stream a little while ago, I was describing how they were setting up a second turntable in the Mega Bay.
You did.
What are the chances that when I come back, they're setting up the second turntable in the high bay?
You're the SpaceX whisperer.
Yeah. Oof. So that crane is assembling a Pathfinder section on a new welding turntable. So theoretically, they should be able to stack ships twice as fast now. They should be able to do simultaneous stacking. It's not quite the same as the Mega Bay where they have two bridge cranes and they could properly do it simultaneously. And in this case, they'll have to use telescopic transportable cranes. But either way, it's still making better use of the space that they have. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty exciting. I've been trying to make a big point about how they're still speeding up production, even though it's already going so fast. And this might be something that helps out that production speed up. Maybe Ship 29 will even start being stacked on that turntable.
Man, they're going Mach 5 with their hair on fire on this. Sorry, Top Gun reference. But yeah, they're already doing massive amounts of production, and we're seeing more production elements being added. This is going to be. I'm right now wondering: are we hitting that 1 a month Starship and booster construction almost?
I think they're getting closer to having one stacked within a month. It's deceiving for many because the lead time on a ship right now is well over half a year. But like a new one with the rate that they're working on them, a new one pops up every month, just under a month and a half right now, it looks like.
And they're wanting to get it down to one a week, correct?
I believe, yeah. Elon tweeted yesterday, I think, about some of their goals for launches, and their production rate's going to have to accommodate that. So,
what was his the tweets referring to? Was it the capacity to Mars?
He had mentioned how many they want to launch per day. I don't have it on hand, but it was he wanted like 20 flights of the same booster in the same day. It was crazy.
And it was like 5 of the same ship or something.
Yeah, it was something along those lines.
It was like how many? Or it was like 5 orbits of this ship, and then they would launch it like 3 or something times a day.
He is saying it in reference to fueling other ships for like Mars transportation and stuff than just the sheer number of flights of tanker variants to fuel one in orbit is kind of the context of that tweet.
Thomas, if you scroll back a few photos, there was one looking into Tent 1 at some assemblies in there.
All right.
It's in the upper left. Yeah. So this photo, Mauricio got pretty lucky. We don't get to see into Tent 1 super often, so it's a nice look. Can you zoom in just a little bit? I haven't properly looked through these photos yet. So off on the right, you can see there's a tank hatch. That's for a booster aft section. It's impossible to tell which one. I would waver a guess that it could be booster 11s. But like I said, we can tell what it is, not what it's for. Just to the left of it, there's a booster forward section. You can see the external stringers, the ribbing. That's most people recognize as being for the booster's inner stage. That would also most likely be for booster 11, I'd imagine. Assuming we're looking at this from the ring yard side. That would change.
We've got the the ring yard side because this is the GSE building right here. There's the door. It's kind of needs some paint though.
That might actually be a newer forward section, not booster 11s. Either way, it's a booster forward section. Just behind it, there's a booster common dome. You can see that right there.
And a 3D total station. I love those.
Yeah. So, as I've already said multiple times through this stream, lots of vehicles, lots of ships, lots of boosters. They're going to start moving fast after this first flight.
By the way, Jake went through and got me the Elon tweet for me. Thank you, Jake. He said, with booster ultimately flying up to 20 times per day and ship up to 5 times per day, and I guess it's approximate for each of those. Useful load to Mars is 150 metric tons, but requires 5 orbital refilling tanker flights. Target 1 megaton of cargo and people delivered to Mars so that it becomes self-sustaining. That greater than 1 megaton actually is the big one there. And the previous things I've heard Elon say, and this is something that he's repeated, is that it's 1 ship every 3 days. That is huge for the production. That's what they want to hit. And that's going to require, I think, probably both facilities, because you said it was a 6-month lead time. Let's say if they bring it down to 3 months for the lead time, you'd still have to have, 30 of them in production at the same time. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we should move over to some of the ground shots from the mudflats area, because Mauricio got some pretty good photos.
Do you want to go with the nose cone with ship 22 flaps, or is there other stuff you want to hit on?
Yeah, I suppose we can talk about this just for a second. That's ship 29's nose cone. Pretty much completely tiled at this point and ready for stacking, it looks like. Ship 30's nose cone inside of Tent 3 has also received both its forward flaps and most of its tiles by this point. We haven't seen inside in quite a while, but I would imagine that Ship 31's nose cone should have received its thermal protection pins by now, the attachment pins for the tiles. We'll see. There is an interesting piece in the lower left of this photo, and I think we have some better angles of it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that as well. This one's a good one.
So there
Sorry,
is.
I'm
It's looking familiar.
Laugh at this one.
In the ring yard last year, a ring showed up with 20 holes, and around those holes were reinforcement plates that were quite rusty. Many people will recognize this. We've discussed that ring on prior streams, and they're building another one. Now,
this is it.
The way it's pretty fresh right now. It's definitely not done. What was most eye-catching to me is how you can still see there's the reinforcements around the holes. There's plating around the holes, but that looks a lot more like 304L steel as opposed to what looked more like mild steel on the previous what I would call a Pathfinder at this point. So it's definitely interesting seeing like it when you see something more than once. It's more than just, oh, look at that weird ring. It's okay, that's something.
Yeah, the thing that I have to look at is this top part. That plate kind of indicating that it's going to be a structural test article or part of a test stand of something.
Well, maybe a structural test article for this part itself, but the fact that we've seen more than one now, to me, indicates that it's a bit more than just a random thing. With 20 holes going around the entire circumference of the barrel, there's been a lot of speculation about what it could be. I don't know how likely it is or not, but I know one of the fun ones I've heard would be like it's the landing thrusters for the HLS Starship. Likely or not, that'd be pretty cool. I think most people would agree that it'd be a pretty fun thing to see them start working on. So either way, I mean, regardless of what it is, this is something to watch out for. They're working on new stuff, and it's not like anything we've seen on a ship before.
Yeah, I think if I have it, I think there's a ground photo of the old one as well, just to compare it to. It's at the closer to the top, if I recall. There it is. So there's that one, and then there's this one.
Yeah, so the new one's not quite done yet. Like, it's still missing some of the parts, but those plates around the holes definitely aren't the same old rusty plates that seem to rust over quick. If they were going to rust, I think they'd already be rusted on the new one. So it might be a more polished article compared to this.
This looks like they were just throwing it together, and they used mild steel versus stainless steel as a test case. But the weird part about it is that they have this top part, and in the aerial photo, wrong aerial. There we go. Is you should be able to see they have these 4 little eyelets that are sticking out, so that it could basically be pushed and pulled in different directions. That's what this would indicate. So this would be part of like a structural test where you're really trying to give it the rigors of a full structural test. So I could imagine this would be part of like a shake table or something that they would do HLS, or if it's not HLS, it could even be the parts of a booster, a new variant for the booster that they have even really indicated besides this part. That was the original idea, but I think HLS is closer.
There's a ton of ideas, and any speculation is fair game. So, I mean, if anybody has any ideas, feel free to share them. I think everything is welcome.
Yeah, I like to think of it as spaghetti on the wall, and we basically throw everything at it and see what sticks. If it doesn't, okay, move on to the next idea, and you eventually get to the closer idea, because you have elements like this that give it away. The 20 holes, that's a huge element there. The one thing that I don't understand is if it's for HLS, and this is the same kind of problem with the booster, is you have 20 holes, you should have 40. You should have one for, let's say, LOX and one for methane or something along those lines. So if this is for some sort of gas thruster, is it ullage or is it hot gas? And if it's hot gas, where's the methane coming from or the oxygen coming from? So it'd have to come in from the inside if it's going to be HLS, and it would be probably using hot gas thrusters, because it's a lot to kind of keep a booster up with just ullage to land on the surface of a planetary body like the moon.
Yeah. Around the ground photos we were looking at of this ring, do we have any shots of Booster 11 on the right side of the Mega Bay?
Right side of Mega Bay?
It should be if you scroll down a little bit. I think
we were looking at it just a bit ago. This one?
Up 2 photos. There's just the liquid oxygen tank of Booster 11 in the Mega Bay. That's currently standing at 20 rings in height. It recently had its downcomer installed, which is pretty cool. They seem to have set it aside for the time being and are setting up to stack the methane tank next. That'll be exciting. Booster 11 should hopefully have an interesting future. The reevaluation for the environmental assessment that we've talked about a couple of times today already, it listed a few notable pieces. It could just be SpaceX being a bit optimistic, but it stated that for the first, second, and third flights, SpaceX has noted that they could be sending the booster into for a soft water landing in the Gulf of Mexico. But it doesn't necessarily state anything after that.
Yeah, it says it's not certain. It says may, like the word may, as in it may be up to 3, maybe just 2, maybe just
so
booster 7, and then they go right to catching.
who knows? It depends on how these flight tests go. I mean, booster 7 could explode on ignition, and they're not launching for another year. Who knows what happens? But either way, it seems like they want to be catching around the 4th flight. If the wording of the document is anything to go by, obviously that could change, but it's something interesting to note. And the 4th flight would be booster 11 and ship 28, I believe.
And looking at that way is that you have the vehicles that they're already lining them up to say which ones are going to be next. There might be changes and skipping over certain ones like they did with 25, but the big part is how accurate the landing is on booster 7, booster 9, 10. Those particular ones will be the ones to determine whether they're going to try an attempt to catch it or not on the catching tower, because that's the huge part. Like, they already have Falcon 9 like almost on a dime, but it's going to be very interesting if booster 7 and above can nail it again like the Falcon 9 does.
Booster 9 is in the Mega Bay. As far as at this point, as far as I'm concerned, it has all 33 engines installed. Let's be honest here. I'm pretty sure we only ever saw 24 of them, but it's been weeks since that, so they probably snuck 9 of them past us, and we wouldn't know the better.
That's about right.
I think they're working on it in this photo up at the interstage, which is pretty cool. Yeah, looks like they might be working on the camera.
That's where the camera's at, right here.
The white brick is
oh, right there,
kind of around it.
Interesting. That's one of the crane man lifts that they've got. They have 2 of those.
Yeah. Booster or ship 28, I think we can also briefly mention. Not too much has happened with it visibly within the last week since it was last discussed, but I mean, it's fully stacked in the Mega Bay.
Still needs to be connected on the pipes.
Yeah. Pipes and wires still need to go up, and it doesn't even have aft flaps yet. Those still need to go on.
Who's getting the aft flaps from 21, 22, 23? Who gets those?
Those will be going on ship 28, and it looks like they have finished up on the refurbishment for at least one of them so far.
So basically 28 and 29, they're the Franken Rocket Juniors. Because they're basically getting the 20, 21, 22, 23 were basically Franken Rocket. They were combining them together, and it's receiving donations from that rocket, so it's kind of the junior now.
I saw somebody mention in the chat earlier today, like, I wonder if ship 25's flaps are going to go on ship 29. I was like, no, I don't care if it's accurate or not, but like, why would you say that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of true. If the flaps work, just save some money and donate the flaps, because 25 is not going anywhere anytime soon.
No breaking jacks, by the way.
But it's a good idea. I mean,
to break jacks,
save some money. No, to save some money is a good idea. Reuse, recycle.
Reusability. That's what we're all about, right?
By the way, we did actually have a quick update on Mega Bay. They added some more windows up in the Mega Bay. It's not actually being installed, but they brought a considerable number into Mega Bay. So we should be seeing these installed after the test flight. And then another thing that you were talking about earlier, Indian Star, was getting information, or basically telemetry, from the booster, because that's something that's very important. This is how they're doing that. So one problem is that right now, if let's say you went to the very bottom of Mega Bay or to the ground station where they have all the antennas, this used to be over there. Basically, they would have this issue that the curvature of the Earth just 19, 20 miles out, approximately where the booster should be landing or doing the splashdown, would basically be below the horizon, and you would not be able to get the correct telemetry. But with this, you'll be able to get the telemetry all the way down. So that's going to be a nice little Easter egg for those watching or see the cams that are, let's say, for some reason pointed towards the build site during launch. There shouldn't really be much to view there, honestly, except for that.
We had a question from Hiccup. How far along is Booster 9 now? That due to that, it's likely going to be the booster to fly next.
I think that it should be rolling out in assuming the OLM's in good condition. I doubt that the vehicle readiness is going to be an issue. It's pretty far along at this point, from what we can tell.
Really, it's just, static firing and doing maybe some other tests to verify systems, right?
Yeah, they're going to have its static firing campaign, which is a big question mark on how that's going to look. And, yeah, it's spin primes. Everybody loves a spin prime.
You love a spin prime now? I thought you didn't like them.
No, you know what? I'm a changed person.
You are. Wow.
Well, there was that one spin prime that had some excitement in it, so maybe you're looking for that excitement to possibly happen again.
And how would you said that the static fire, we don't know what that's going to look like yet? How come? Like, what would make it unusual?
Sorry, can you say again?
When you were just explaining that, we need to see what the static fire will look like when they test before you said spin prime, I was curious why it would be different.
It's more about the campaign that they're going to follow. Booster 7 has done 7 static fires. Will they follow a similar campaign with Booster 9? Will they reduce it to 4 static fires? Will the first static fire be all 33 engines?
Understood.
Probably
Thank you, sir.
I don't think they'll go for all 33 right away, but who knows?
Why wouldn't
Basically
they?
moving.
Wouldn't it make sense to do that? Sorry, 88.
No, you're fine.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, there's nothing inherently saying they couldn't. I'd like to think as long as they do a spin prime, I'm sure it'd be fine, but I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about it.
I only say that because he's talking about like putting a booster in a ship every 5 minutes or something like that on the stand. So you would think that the testing would have to go a lot more quickly as well.
Well, you ramp it up. It would be the general idea. Now, the question is, how ramped up are they going to do? Like, is it just going to be static fire? Okay, you're good to go. Launch it. Or is it going to be, we'd like to go through and test this vehicle a little bit more, do the static fires with the gimbaling, for instance, for the electric TVC, then go up to additional static fires just to verify that, yes, 33 engines, it's good. Let's go ahead and launch it.
I would think that they would follow a similar campaign to what they do with the Falcon 9 boosters.
I think they would. I think they need to get there, though. I mean, I think it would be realistic that after this launch, that we'll see some more revisions, possibly to the launch table here and there. And at some point, Raptor 2.5s are going to come out, and there's a good chance there's going to be revisions to them. And so I imagine the testing can still be multiple steps for the time being, because nothing is set in stone just yet. I mean, the Falcon 9 is version now, and it's for a while. So
I think if we're going to see changes, it'll be KSC on the table and stuff like that. I don't know, unless they're changing, like you said, if they're changing booster itself, the way the configuration is of the Raptors, then I would agree we'll see changes in Boca Chica. But I don't think we're going to see any massive changes in Boca Chica. I think we'll see the changes in KSC. But that's me.
I think we're going to see them both places. Like, there's going to be major changes of how they're going to do Starship at both locations over time. First, we'll probably see it here as far as their testing, and then we're going to see additional fine tuning of Starship at KSC, because they're going to be doing a lot more launches, I suspect.
Good suspicion.
yeah, I think they'll continue to do more testing until they settle in on the design for the booster ship that's not changing so the boost ships themselves continue to generate, and that means there's testing they have to do that otherwise they wouldn't have to do. If that makes sense. When you're making even minor changes to a shield or booster, that means minor changes need to be proved, means more testing. And so until they like a block where they say, okay, we're done for a while, I think we're still going to see longer pre-test campaigns than we see with the Falcon 9.
Nate, you still got to work on that connection, my friend.
Yeah, but I didn't understand that you're basically saying that they're going to do block revisions like the Falcon 9, and that basically is going to allow them to iterate and change their testing campaigns as well, like they did with the Falcon 9.
Yes.
We heard that.
All right, so let me go ahead and ask Jax before I decide to head over to the launch site, because we've got about an hour left here. But we actually have Jax here, so we can probably go through a little bit more at the build site.
We also have donations and questions too, just so you know.
Okay, let's get to that right after we finish up here.
Yep, as you like.
This is actually a really interesting piece to note.
Super interesting.
Do you want to go ahead on that, Jax?
Yeah, well, you can see that there are each of those 3 sets of pins emulates what's on the hull of the ship. So that's how the thermal protection tiles attach. And that's not a tile. Tiles aren't yellow foam. What we do see they're testing, though, is the metal frame. So each tile, even though it's the black and white tile like we normally see, there's a core structure on the inside that allows it to attach to the ship. And it seems like they're testing out something with that. Maybe some new designs, maybe something lighter. It's interesting to see. They're testing something out for sure.
I thought I saw some with black tiles, and I can't seem to find the photos, but they're just right here. I'm looking at it as a testing and training station. So it's really for new employees coming in, learning how to handle the tiles, how to remove them, how to do the fixturing. Because like this one right here just kind of screams like this one is the handicapped. Like you have no idea how to do this. You don't know how to work with it. Like as far as being able to get in from the side to see what's going on and how to remove the pin. And like this is the first one that they would do. This would be the second one. This would be the third one. And then they start getting into real tiles. So that they can just train their way up, because it just doesn't make sense otherwise.
I wonder if the one with the slots in it is maybe designed in a way where they can safely remove the tile.
Yeah.
For purposes of this kind of stuff. There's a lot of interesting things, but it's definitely something to do with the mechanical attachment of the tile.
Couldn't it also have to do with obviously the mechanical attachment, but also like maybe where the lifting points are versus where they aren't? The different aspects of the ship too, where they have areas that they cover after the fact and stuff like that. Could that also account for the difference in the cuts?
Very well could be, as far as like if they're going through and training the employees. I'm just trying to find additional ones, but this is pretty much it. They could basically be going through deciding how to design tiles and how to remove tiles with the current pin system. That's another way to look at it. So they might be changing the mechanical properties and how they attach.
You really think they're changing them, though? I feel like they have a pretty good system for them now, especially with the fact that they keep taking them off and putting them on and refitting them and all that good stuff. I think this is what came out of all of that.
Well, it could be like how the tile itself is built. So one idea I had forever ago that it's not really showing here, but the idea would be you could use plugs for tiles that you want to remove and replace. You might be able to do something like that. That's a terrible idea because you have to do 3 plugs per tile, and most of these just click into place. But when they don't, you want to see what's going on, and maybe this is a good example of how they can either demonstrate it for themselves and understand the mechanical issues that they're having, or just training employees. It's kind of one of those two, or both, that this apparatus has. Speaking of which, this cone came up yesterday, and we kind of discussed that this cone is just kind of scrap, but it's with the heat shield tiles. And the idea is we could basically look at seeing how to do additional heat shield tiles on cones, but basically at the ground level without going up on man lifts and spending all day to try to get just a couple of tiles on. This would be, here's a new tiling method we're going to try, and we're going to do larger tiles or different ways of gluing the tiles on. This would be a perfect example of being able to do that, but without having to use a full article to mess around with, because this is close enough for at least the top half of the LOX tank, the LOX header tank.
Yeah, I mean, so for reference, this is the tip from Nosecone 31 when they cut it off. And it's just been kind of sitting around. They could do some testing stuff like you had said, but I think it's worth considering that they barely have a scrapyard right now. Like even those arrow covers sitting beside it with tiles are dreadfully out of date. Those were meant to be on ship 26 back before it had its detiling incident. I say incident, but
yeah, this is the one that Mauricio found the photo for me. Thank you, Mauricio. The tiles, so you can see that like each step working all the way up, including these tiles. And,
yeah, definitely. Then
it looks like a couple of them have holes or other elements that are issues here.
They also have the different backing. One has netting, one doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got the netting all the way around here, but there's no nettings over here. And I think there was a black tile right there that, it didn't have any netting or backing. This does, so it's like this is the train your way up through the tile installation.
Do you think it's a hierarchy, or you think it's just the different types? I feel like it's the different types because this one has KO wool with the netting. The one on the left is like the doghouse that doesn't.
Oh, and these are all the same little doghouse triangle shape with the yellow tiles on the left. And there's just like one black tile, I think, right here. But the rest of it's just, I think it's working your way up for training purposes. But anyways, the craziest part about all of this is we're kind of missing the big picture here. The tiles. There is absolutely an absurd amount of tiles. Those are all boxes full of tiles for ships.
Quick question from Crane Man. Are the metal triangular plates embedded in the tiles?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I believe, Mauricio, back when you've seen a tile before, you've kind of seen that core structure on the inside.
Right. Yeah. They seem to have indentations on the inside. But there's different types of tiles, from my understanding. I've actually seen some that don't have anything whatsoever. I feel like those are glued on, possibly, because they don't have anything.
You'd be right. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the triangle pieces that you're talking about that are inside the tiles. Sorry, I had to step on and let the dog out. But that's what's embedded in each of those black tiles. And probably these like foam or yellow pieces. I'm not sure if they're foam, but they kind of look like it with the edges kind of coming off there.
What else do we have?
We have not talked about the Mega Bay.
You haven't?
We've went around the entire site. Skip the Mega Bay. So I actually should go to the beginning of these pictures and the flyovers as well.
He was hoping you would show up, Jaxie.
It's true. I always love having Jackson here because he's really good at a lot of the more intricate stuff here.
I think several people will say they like having Jax on stream. Often.
Ditto.
So this is funny. I've noticed this truck with rebar. And we'll just zoom out to another image here. I think it was this one. And it's gone. But there was a truck here with rebar as well. But this is from the 12th. The ground shots were from the 14th, so yesterday. But they are making some major headway. So they've got the embeds started for each of these spots.
We watched on Thursday and they started Wednesday evening. That section of that rebar that's kind of got the dam at each end, we're pretty sure they have filled it now, that it's full of concrete.
Wow, they're already doing concrete.
Oh yeah, they were pumping trucks there almost all day Thursday and a good portion of Wednesday evening.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So you can see the two kind of dam areas where the rebar will stick through for the other sections eventually. But that whole L-shaped, they were pouring it.
So they closed it off about here and then worked all the way around. So they've done about half
you can
of it.
see you can see the wood. See where the wood is? You can see kind of that bracing. Yes, that's
from here to here.
Yep. That way they have rebar ready to integrate with the next pour.
Okay, so this is all 100% done. They poured it. Okay. I was thinking it was like all the way over, and I'm just like, okay, where's the ending point? But yeah, the wood makes sense.
L section.
So let me go back to the ground shots here. So that's the same area you're looking at here. They are going crazy with this mega bay. Like they need the capacity, I think, is what they're really thinking. And you can see the embeds and the T heads. That's what these are called. Wow. And there's that wall, basically, of concrete.
Yeah, you can see where they've put the plastic over what they've poured.
Yeah, they got to keep it moist or keep it wet so that it's quite humid there. It cures a lot better that way. Yeah, you just see that the concrete's come out and stripping out a little bit, but it doesn't matter. It's just interesting. I wonder how they're going to remove the wood plates there.
That's a good thought.
Can you remove them? Can you actually remove them in concrete like that? Or do you have to, maybe you go through and take out some of this stuff. There's a wire mesh in place here. So perhaps they remove that, then they can remove the wood behind it. But it's coming out in pieces. That's just my 2 cents of how I think they would do it. All right, we've covered, I think, just about everything. I'm going to do a quick scan over of anything else we're missing. Oh, huge piece we're missing, actually. This section of concrete. So they've gone through and actually poured this. Mauricio got some ground photos of this directly. Let's see. Here it is. So they were pouring this basically on Friday. So all of that's been done. A couple other elements is this building itself. They've already made the cutouts and installed windows. Let's see if I can find the view showing all the way through. Okay, so you can see all the way through now. There's the central column and there's a door on the left and the door on the right. So these are functionally one building now. And then one other thing you can spot here is there are windows, and I suspect there's also doorways, but there are windows that go all the way through into viewing Mega Bay. So you can see from one side to the other. So you can look at the inside of the production site or production of inside Mega Bay from inside of this outboard building or whatever you want to call it.
So there's a photo like that too. I think Max Q's the one that pointed it out, where you can actually see through the building in one of Mauricio's photos.
Yeah, you can see it through it right here. Is there another ground photo?
No, I think that was it. You got it.
Okay. So I think there was a ground photo we had between the tents here that just barely got it.
Everybody's very excited. They want you to know that they are attaching the lower lift points to Ship 24 right now.
Oh, it's finally happening.
They are.
I was reading a comment you posted earlier that they were bringing it down, and I'm like, what? And it's the lift points you're talking about.
To whom are you saying that to? To Jax?
You, I think.
Me?
You posted, yeah, but it was a comment from somebody else you had reposted. So
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I was trying to understand. Like they're lowering Ship 24. No, they're lowering to the points to pick up 24. I see. Now it makes sense. But yeah, I don't see it here. But yeah, there's a great view that shows all the way through to the other side. Well, I think I could move on to the integrations site, as I call it, because it's just the one building. Like this one building, I think, kind of determines the entire naming of the site for me. But
Do you want to
that's
do
just me.
donations before you do that?
Oh, that's right. Yes, donations and any other questions we have before we move on.
Mercy, do you want to go first?
Well, I started asking questions early on, but I'll do one question here. This one's gonna be for Jax, and it's from Canada Drew. Since Jack's on, can you explain how the CH4 and LOX tanks connect together? That cross-section view showed the top of the LOX tank was concave.
Yeah. So in the one of the documents that came out yesterday, SpaceX released a cutaway of one of their CAD models of Ship 24. And you could see how the methane tank was two closed domes making up the tank, and the liquid oxygen tank was kind of two upside down facing domes. And that's because they use a common bulkhead on Starship. There's only 3 domes on the vehicle: the forward dome of the methane tank, the aft dome of the LOX tank, and one dome that separates them. So it has to face in some direction. And from the methane tank, there's a massive pipe that runs all the way down through the liquid oxygen tank and connects to the engines. And I believe in the photos, the cutaway photos that SpaceX released, it's colored in red. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I've been showing it this whole time.
Yeah, okay. I was looking at my other screen. Yeah, so you can see how it's colored in red. There's that closed off dome. So everything kind of below that dome towards the top of this photo and above the dome where the engines connect is the liquid oxygen tank. And that's the methane tank right there that Thomas is highlighting.
Yeah, this is methane. This is all LOX. So LOX is blue, by the way. Tracking this up. You got the header tank up here. This one should be red, but it's not. And we should go into that actually now that we've got this view.
Yeah, so
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I guess it came down to some wording in the document. The way they have their stuff written out, it's kind of strange. So I'm going to pull up this document here in a second so I can read the exact quote. I don't want to mess it up. So if you just give me 15 seconds.
Okay. But the interesting part is we already knew that Ship 24 is going to do a belly flop into the ocean based off of all of the stuff that SpaceX had provided over the past week. Indicated really the drawings and everything else, even the whole sequence of events would indicate that it's not going to relight the engines at all. It's just going to do a belly flop right into the Hawaii Ocean. But when they came out with the launch license, they come out with a supplemental document that Jax is pulling up now. And in that document, it has a lot more detailed information, including this among many other diagrams. And I actually put this together with the other diagrams to try to get the best resolution possible to just eke out every little detail. And then I did a super resolution image on it. So you can kind of see that they've got the tiles here and all these little details. So you've got these little kind of, everything's blurry, but these ones actually stand out. Those are the COPVs. So they still have quite a few COPVs inside the header tank, or the forward section next to the header tanks. So again, this is the LOX, and then this one is the methane, but it's not red. And do you have the document there, Jax?
Yeah. So as per the document, this is a direct quote. The location of the residual liquid fuel, methane, is showed in the highlighted red region.
Should be highlighted red there, but go ahead.
If you scroll down to it's referring to the methane downcomer.
Right this one right here.
So that's the residual that they expect to be in there during re-entry. Then they say, during entry, the fuel main tank is isolated from the transfer tube such that the liquid fuel residuals are fully contained within the approximately 13-meter long transfer tube that runs through the liquid oxygen tank. And you can see that they do have the residuals isolated in there. They say the residual of the LOX tank are shown in highlighted blue regions. The LOX residuals will exist in both the LOX main tank, the LOX header tank, and the LOX header tank feed lines. LOC's main tank residuals will be mostly concentrated on the windward side of the tank due to the drag force experienced by the vehicle falling through the atmosphere. Now, they leave something out of that, though, and they go through how there's going to be residuals in the LOC's main tank, header tank feed pipes. But by the way they're wording it, there's not going to be anything in the methane header tank at all. And it's not listed as such in the photo. It's not listed as such in the document. They specifically, they don't specifically state that there's not, but they specifically omit it. So if I had to guess, what my speculation as to this is that because Ship 24 is not doing a landing burn, it's not doing the flip and burn maneuver. It is going to do the world's highest belly flop. It's I think they just have the liquid oxygen header tank filled. It could be as ballast at the front of the vehicle. I don't think that they're going to fill the methane header tank for the flight test. I think it's going to be an empty system. It'll be pressurized so the pipes don't collapse, but I don't think they're going to have liquid methane in it.
Pressurized means LNG? Or just air?
They could use LN2, but they could use liquid or gaseous methane. Or not LN2, sorry. They could use gaseous nitrogen or gaseous methane.
Okay, I've got an alternative theory here for you. Is that Ship 24, because they are not expecting to it could basically burn up in re-entry. It could have a whole series of other issues, but really they want to test out the booster and then the second stage in orbit to test re-entry as much as they can. But another testing area that they could go for is transferring propellants. So they could do this one of two ways. Either this is going to be filled and they're going to burn it off with everything else, and this is just what's left. Or they do another thing, which is they do liquid fuel transfer. So that's something that they want to do in 0G. That is going to help demonstrate to them the viability of being able to transfer basically your methane and liquid oxygen while you are in 0G. So they want to be able to do it from one ship to another. For right now, they could basically go through and test it for one tank to another. So they can go from the header tank and try to basically go for the main tank. That's one direction that they could basically do it. So there's this I think it's the blue line, kind of barely visible or something similar to that. It basically comes over to the this tank here, which is the methane tank, and then it goes through to here. But if you open up a valve, actually two valves, you would be able to transfer it into this. And then before you're deorbiting, one thing that you do is you eject all of the liquids you can from both tanks. So the methane tank, as well as the LOX tank. Now, I can assuredly say that they do it with the LOX tank because we've seen it every single flight. The methane tank, that one's a little bit more tricky. I haven't seen the piping for that, but it should be there. Could even just be just basically a vent to do that. And that's why you have just these residuals here. But anyways, they do a LOX dump for sure. They don't want to have just stuff sloshing around. As much as it would be nice to have extra residuals, let's say on Mars, they're only going to be landing on the header tanks. And the same thing here. And they really want to test that out, I think, for at least the transfer systems. And you do just dump everything overboard before you re-enter.
Wasn't that a hazard, though? Isn't that like an environmental thing?
No, I mean, you're doing it in space before re-entry. So the stuff is already kind of headed towards the atmosphere, and whatever little bits of methane would basically burn up in the atmosphere long before it even got to the ground. It's going to be instantly vaporized and turned into plasma, and then it'll break down as well.
Okay.
But Jax, was there anything else that was on that document that we're missing on this part for the reentry?
I don't think necessarily for the reentry. It's 1/2 the hour. I think we should probably get moving to the launch site.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you, Jaxie.
Okay, so ground shots of the launch site. I love that establishing shot. One thing that we're going to basically see here is a lot of painting has been occurring, especially on these tanks. Let me actually see if I can just skip through directly to the elements I'm talking about. So it's probably closer to the end. Here we go. So the methane tanks, they've been painted. That's a big one. And then I'm going to go to the flyover images as well, because might as well. So you can see they were halfway painted during the flyover. But one thing that you can notice is the landing pad is pretty much clear except for these couple of items here. So this is for the platform that they put underneath the booster. They'll need to use this to lower it down, and they'll probably bring this away from the launch site. Remove a couple of trailers. They've been cleaning out the dumpsters, so those should be empty by the time of flight. And one huge area right here, it is completely clean of any parts. Like, it's just got a van and some cones here, and they've actually put in new basically parking strips or parking stripes. Sorry.
You can actually see the two remote control fire nozzles on the launch pad again, because everything's out of the way.
Oh, that's right. Let's see if I've got a really good view of that here. This shows just the one on the right. I need a little bit more. Here we go. So you've got the fire control nozzle here and here. The water systems from that are from Hoppy, and there was pumps over in this building here. I mean, it should all technically be still connected. So if they ever do have a fire for whatever reason, they could potentially put it out with these two, as long as Hoppy has water. And I think it should, because it has an emergency water basically connection on the outside of the shipping container wall that is connected to Hoppy. So it's always should be containing water. And speaking of which, there's apparently been a water truck around here recently that's, well, dropped quite a bit.
You sure that's a truck and not just the water table seeping up?
I hope not, because if it's the water table level seeping up, it's seeping up where there is no water here, but there is, water here. So I'm thinking it was a truck that was parked right here and just was leaking quite a bit. But yeah, that is super clean, all of this. And then they're even doing some final touch-ups on the back of the berm. So not the best of angles there. That one's okay. So you can see they've got this entire area basically being concreted, but the biggest issue is I haven't really seen too many pumper trucks, which is what they really need to do in order to really get this all done. They've pretty much just been using wheelbarrows and then flinging it up, as far as I've been able to tell.
We saw a pumper truck the other day, though.
Oh, good. Because they must have needed it for this section, because I'm just like, that's a lot of wheelbarrows. That's actually a lot of. Yeah, and they were just literally flinging up the concrete up when I was watching them on lab cam the other day. It was quite a bit of work just to do this. So they already have a change here. So they've got some scaffolding or other materials to build up the wall. You can see in the ground photos. That's the wrong site. So where was it? Must have been at the beginning. Because I remember Mauricio showing that. Now I'm just, there it is. So yeah, they've got all of this up to here done. So this entire area, you just need some rebar, and then they can go ahead and start doing this side and this side, and they'll probably be done by Sunday.
So Thomas, Animal actually wanted you to know to look at the crane. He says, look at the crane was used for concrete. Berm should be done. So Animal wants you to know that the berm is done, and they used the crane for the concrete.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I did see a wheelbarrow. I was wondering how they were getting all of that, but it was the crane. And I'm not seeing the wheelbarrow now. They moved it somewhere else. but I was watching them do it on the other day on LabCam. Anyways, I was thinking about this crane, and I'm like, okay, but it's this one he's talking about.
Alaska Space also said the same thing.
Most obvious part right there. Thank you. I was missing it. One other thing is that they've laid down Marvin the crane here. You've got some cribbing right here where they have basically pointed the back end towards the launch site, which is really good. You don't want to point the windows and other things at the at the incoming debris and rocks that are coming off of the vehicle during launch. You can see it laid down right here. So the cribbing should basically be back there. I think if you had any pictures from Highway 4 showing that, but it's kind of in the background of quite a few of these images. But let's go ahead and kind of go through this a little bit more methodically. Do you want to look at some more aerial shots first, or do you want to go to the ground shots?
Of the launch site?
Yeah.
Jax, do you have a preference?
It's up to you. This is not my area, so do as you please.
Nate, you have a preference?
I do not.
I say aerial photos first.
All right, let's do that. Okay, so we've already talked about the side of the berm. We can see the COPVs have been placed over here. They were the ones that were on the far side of the site next to the integration tower. They don't want them rolling around or blowing around in the breeze or getting destroyed, so they brought them over here. Everything has been moved that can be moved. If it can be rolled by the rocket, they'll move it. We've seen pipes, for instance, last week brought over to the integration site. They're just sitting there. We did skip that entire side, I think, now that I think about it, because we got some questions that came in and I forgot about that. Anyways, we'll jump back to those a little bit later. Now they've actually cleaned up this area as well a little bit, not too much, but it's a lot better than it was looking. But yeah, I'm excited to see the. It's like they've had what are those called? Street sweepers. So the actual ones that have vacuums attached to them, they've been sending them out, cleaning it up, and that's exciting because it's like that's like getting out the toothbrush here and making everything squeaky clean before a flight. They don't want the FOD to basically be flying around and breaking things, which is the foreign object debris. I've seen that they've already gone through and buried these pipes as well. That was necessary anyways, but this reduces the amount of impact that a launch can have on the pipes. You don't want them getting lifted or broken or having other issues. The other part that I need to show is actually on the ground side of things that shows this. So I can come back to that in just a little bit. Yeah, as I mentioned before, they painted those. And most of the stuff I think is really updated on the ground side. So I'm just seeing a lot more of a clean pad than you'll ever see. So you're seeing more concrete here pretty much than any other time. I want to hit those ground photos.
I will mention, for what it's worth, Ship 24 is now airborne.
Oh boy.
So stacking for launch.
Oh boy.
Hope this is the final time. All right, before we get to the ground photos, there's something else we need to share. I forgot about that we talked about earlier. And grab those links.
Jaxie, what would be the best view of Ship 24 being in the air? 26? 20?
No clue.
Okay.
Nerdle.
Nerdle?
Probably, because Rover 2 zoomed in on the stabilizer arms at the moment. Yeah, Nerdle is probably right now the best view.
I will try and pull it up right now so we can watch both.
All right, I'm going to have to switch over just so you can hear the audio as well. So we had an interesting problem happen this morning. And let me know if you can hear audio when I start playing this Indian Star.
Aye, Captain. I can hear it.
Oh, good. Okay. And I couldn't see it, but there we go. So there was some sort of workplace accident. Luckily, it doesn't look like anybody was directly involved. Doesn't look like there was anybody in that area beforehand. I was able to watch this as well on VR cam. So there's a different view.
And the biggest thing is that it doesn't look like anyone was hurt, which is huge.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that there was nobody. I didn't see any flashlights up there beforehand going around anywhere. So I just don't. I hope there's nobody in this section when whatever it was came down. This current speculation is that it's part of the elevator. So it's the counterweight for the elevator is what people think it is. And so here's the other view. And I'm going to actually pause and actually zoom in.
And while you do that, Lab Cam does have a little bit better views. Some folks in the chat are commenting on that. So Lab Padres Lab Cam has a zoomed in view. It's a little bit closer to the ship.
But don't go anywhere. I'm going to try and pull it up here so we can all watch it together.
Okay, so this one doesn't have audio, but it should be occurring or already occurred. Maybe I just missed it. Because I had it queued up and I went back maybe 5 or 10 seconds. I'm double guessing myself here. Is like, wait, what time?
So we're still looking at Rover 2. Is that what you want?
Oh, nope. That's not what I was wanting. I did the same thing.
Don't say I did it. I don't know
No,
what you're talking
I did the
about.
same thing. It's the same thing. I was like, oh, that's a problem. But yeah, there's no audio, so I can just hit live here and show the video. It should be right there. I need to get the time here. So 1:48. Was that happening at 1:47, I believe?
Yeah, that's what we were clocking it at, 1:47.
Yeah, I don't know why it went back so far. Or went to the future, I guess, in that case.
Are you saying it went back to the future?
Yeah, well, at least for the the YouTube playback. I don't know why. I had it queued up, just ready for it beforehand. So I've got it 2 times speed, so that should work pretty well with showing right here is where they're already looking up, so I'm suspecting it's already happened. Because that's the big cue is they heard it, everybody heard it.
Yeah, couldn't miss it. We all heard it, and we're not even there.
Yeah. Okay, so they're just minding their own business here. But yeah, this is one thing that I'm worried about is that it could have damaged potentially sensitive lines like filling lines for the ship. So they're doing a lift, which would indicate that they think everything's fine, everything's holding pressure, that there's no issues. But still the amount of damage that could be done if that was the elevator weight, the counterweight coming down would be considerable. So I would love to find out, sooner that rather than later from either Elon or somebody else at SpaceX saying, what happened with that? Because it's concerning the orbital test flight, and we don't know if it's going to actually happen or not because of it. It's one of those things where it could get delayed 3 days or even 3 weeks, depending on what potential damage could have occurred. Yeah, if there's somebody who has the time on the VR cam that it happened, because I'm not seeing it here.
Do you have the links in there too from Epic Spaceflight? You can show that one. It's the same thing.
Where is that at? Can you?
Yeah, it's here. I'll get it for you right now. It's up. It's
Thank you.
Where the other video was, right here. Right there.
Okay, and I'm actually going to share the audio again. It really does need the audio to understand what's going on.
This one particularly, because the audio is super clear on this one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that does not sound good at all.
Sounds heavy.
Yep. This is just I gotta switch back to the screen. Sorry, this will take one more second.
Yeah, we're looking at the video you just showed us. In the meantime, I can read off a few donations if you... Oh, no, you're there. Okay, good.
But yeah, seeing those sparks just come off. Yeah, that's just not what you want to see. That was really interesting is that at the very top of the tower on the VR view that I was trying to get working but wasn't showing up for some reason, is that it was showing the sparks basically starting off at the top of the tower. Like you see a little spark and then immediately you see these massive amount of sparks. So I think it failed up here. You saw a little spark occur and then you saw the major part that had already fallen at this point. So it was just really, not a good day there. All right, let's get back to the other parts of the build site, which are still good news and still in good shape. I just have worries about that that's just going to be on my mind until they actually do the launch or they have some announcement about what that was. So they have gone through and been painted the legs or painted the legs on parts that needed it. It still needs a little bit more right here, but it's pretty significant because every static fire, every opportunity they've had to do anything interesting, they always paint the legs just days beforehand. So we're at that point where you're an employee that works at the launch site and they need some more painting done. Perfect. There's a little spot right there for you. And they'll basically have the launch right afterwards. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be still wet in places. The chopsticks themselves are actually looking really clean. We were looking at from SpaceX. They had posted finally their Flickr account. The new view from that. I'm going to actually pull up the photo of the top of the chopsticks looking down. I basically went through and created another super resolution version of that.
Super resolution?
Yep. It basically means it fakes the details, but it makes it look better. So this is what it looks like here. Oh, it went down below for some reason. So this is what we're looking at. As far as the chopsticks, they look extremely clean. There's just a little bit of abrasion from I think where they had the scaffolding before. This is back when it was stacked, but it looks really good. We had been talking about these plates down here. They still don't look like holes. They still look like welding points for structural reinforcement from the bottom. So Nate, you had talked about this as well. What was your opinion on the plates on the launch table?
Yeah, me and Philip Kidd had talked, and just it looks like plug welds to me, where they've, if you weld those plates just on the edges, if it's just a burn plate, it's a sacrificial plate on top of the deck of the launch mount to take the fire so you don't damage that structure. If you don't do something with the amount of vibration you're going to have, those plates could flutter. And so they just look to me like they're holes in that burn plate where they welded plugs to the plate below.
Now, one thing that we talked about is that there might be 2 plates actually for each one of these. So there's a top plate and a bottom plate, and there's a gap in between so that there isn't thermal transfer, but you still have these spots right here, which would be the plug welds you talked about, and it goes into structure below. So I think it goes this way for each one of these.
It'd be a structure or some sort of standoff if that's what they've done. Similar setup, just a little bit more to it. Yes.
Yeah, then the other part is that Elon had talked about this last Friday, and Zach was really excited about that. But the idea that they could basically be putting water in between the plates as well, and that's something that would happen in the future. So it's stainless steel. It would be great for that. And you'd basically have a way of taking the thermal energy and the sound energy, and instead of having it be transferred through the system, you basically vaporize it, turns into steam, and has to go somewhere. But it would be really interesting to see a system like that to really reduce the amount of damage that could be impacting the inside of the table and other equipment around there. And then you could really honestly throw water on the top of it as well, so that you have multiple layers of so going from liquid to solid to liquid to solid, with gases in between, all of that, so that you can really just reduce the amount of sound energy permeating through the table.
They're going to take a already complex structure and make it that much more complex.
Yeah.
But because it's so complex, you've got to do what you can do to protect it. I mean, the last thing you need is to damage that launch ring because of just the sheer amount of time it would take to fix or rebuild it if you had something major to happen.
I mean, I've been looking at this being built for
a long time. What, 2 years? 2 years?
At least 2 years. Like the legs themselves are the oldest part about it, up to here. And that itself is going to be around almost 3 years now. It's been ages. So yeah, since like late 2019, they started digging. So yeah, that would have been 3 years now. I'm just so happy that 39A is going so much quicker. So speaking of protecting systems, it looks like they decided we would like to protect the deluge system, and I think that was a okay view, but these ones are better here. They've put plates up, just welded directly to the end cap. Started painting here. They're just kind of half painting here and there, and it's just like, okay, they don't really care as much, but it's not connected all the way through on the rest of these. It's just got this one collar in. The rest are not in place. And then we talked about how the very top of the tanks, they'll basically be that center connection between all 4 of these. So this is what you'll be looking at as far as that one pipe at Sanchez that I mentioned before.
Need more real estate on the screens. I keep trying to put the window in the window, and I keep getting it stuck behind something. You or the...
Here, let me help you out.
Oh, you're okay. I got
all
it.
directions. I just make sure you don't get any real estate. There you go.
Don't worry, you don't even have to try.
Okay. I have to look at this live stream later on that part because I'm not looking at it at the moment. So that's funny. Oh, there's another good view of the crane laying down. It's kind of bizarre once you see it along the ground how huge it is compared to everything.
Yeah, you can kind of see that truck peeking out from pad B. Give you a little bit of a scale.
Yeah, and it's not laid down horizontally in a lengthwise. We're kind of looking at the back end here, a little bit of the side, but mostly the back end. So that's really good to be able to protect the rest of the vehicle. I actually kind of wish it was a little bit more to the left so that it was pointed right at the rocket and the exhaust in case something really did go wrong, or just rocks coming out and banging up the nice paint job.
If you look, you don't have to do this, but from an overhead view, the tower is almost directly in line between the OLM and where it's sitting. The main body of the crane is sitting there. it's just about as strategic as they could get without probably bringing the crane to the crane yard.
Yeah, this is when it was up. So this is where it's laying down. It's pretty close in the direction it was facing.
Yep.
In that view, but this back end's not the right way. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty close.
Yep.
We do know that they had in their documents, and this will be probably part of the Army Corps of Engineers. They want to go through and take up all the property they own. So it goes up to, I think it was halfway up to here. They would like to be able to bring this crane all the way over to this part of the site, so it's kept away from static fires of the test stand A and B, as well as the integration tower and OLM1 and that site. And then when they have the second one, right in here probably, or maybe it's going to be in here, who knows. Those are going to be protected, or this will be protected by being further away in this direction, and basically protected by these berms and everything else. So I'm hoping to see that.
Yeah, I bet that's still in the cards, because as they get to being busy, 10 launches a day, maybe someday. But nonetheless, when they get busy enough, they're testing ships. If you have a ship on stand A, a ship on stand B, and a booster on the launch mount, and you're wanting to test all that, there's no real place for the crane to go right now. So that's, I think, will be a priority when they get the approval to start developing land.
Yeah, well, it's better than bringing it back to the build site,
Yes.
for instance, on SPMTs like they did in the past with the crane we called Bluto, that was the blue and white roll lift crane.
That was the best one. That was right up there with the big Buckner one.
Yeah.
Oh, Bluto. Bluto was the one that almost did a backflip for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, and didn't Bluto help build the OLM as well as High Bay?
It did so much stuff.
Bluezilla helped build.
That was Bluto.
Was it Bluto? I thought Bluezilla helped build High Bay, part of High Bay.
It's the same crane with different names.
Okay.
It's all like, I guess you could say fan names from different groups.
Yeah, different groups.
Yeah, same crane though. But again, like I keep coming back to this whole thing about them painting. They even painted the doors. We think these came off of like, what was it, Phobos and Deimos? It's like one of the last things they did was take off the doors, and it's like, hey, you get to have them now.
That's actually funny if that's true.
Could be true. It's similar to the style. It's very thick steel plates meant to take huge amounts of water, or the seawall, or the sea, coming up and ramming your door. You don't want it to break in and flood the place and drag people out. So
No, that's a bad thing?
yeah, it's a terrible thing.
I wonder if Maria would know.
Probably would. By the way, good news. The camera is installed. We now have the IMAX camera right here, plus a secondary camera right next to it, and a whole lot of cameras right here. And I think there's even further down, there's some other cameras. And then we were talking about this bracket last night. It's just a bracket. It could be used for holding weather sensors, cameras, microphones, pretty much anything. But yeah, I'm still wondering about that elevator shaft problem. Like, how are they going to get back up there if the elevator's counterweight's broken?
They've already been up there once today. They used the wind power lift to go to the QD level. And then there is a ladder that I didn't know about inside one of the legs. I don't think Max Q's in here right now. He knew which legs that it's in. Anyway, they used a ladder to then climb up to the first level higher.
This ladder.
Yep, there we go. They climbed that ladder all the way up to when you get to that first next level at the top of the tower. Then there's stairs.
Okay, so that really does confirm that it was part of the elevator system. Yeah, that still scares me every time I think about it, because it's like all these pipes, anything running into it, creating that much energy, even it comes off the side, bounces over and hits one of these, punctures it, you're being a world of hurt.
One of the things that, if they have a valve problem on the tower on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there is no way to get up there quickly to check it now.
Yeah, they won't be able to get up and quickly check with the connection of the ship and everything else when they get that installed today without using the ladder system.
Yep, wind power and then over. So,
well, actually, the wind milk crane actually can bring you up to here. So
Yeah, it can
we'll
bring
be
it to
fine
QD
here.
level. Yeah. And so if they have a problem with valves, instead of it being a quick get on the elevator and go check it, it's either going to be a scrub or wait for the wind power truck to get down there and get someone up to it. So
Yeah, they seriously just need a hammer for the valves. They just attach to it. Just bam, 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 bam. Okay, it's open. We're good. Just a little pneumatic one or something. Anyways, you were talking about this earlier that they were removing, and yeah, there is the crane here.
Yep. I couldn't remember
Removing.
if there's a Grove claim or not.
I thought there was, but yeah,
I think it's Grover.
It's a Grove crane. I don't know which one this one's called. Grover is the one with the mega lift wings over at Massey's. Still, it's still
Is that Massey's?
basically. I think it was. I was
Okay.
looking at it earlier,
It is.
but they move around, so it could be in 2 different shots from 2 different days. So
Oh, but Nate's confirming it was where you said it
Yeah,
was.
it was there. They've been using it because the top hat and other things, they need it to move those real heavy pieces of the can crusher around.
yeah, it's such a versatile crane. It's up to 450 metric tons that it can lift, which is quite impressive. But the sad part is the can crusher itself is weighing way more than that. So it's like, nope, not going to do it. It's mostly concrete at the bottom of that thing that holds it all down. But this is actually, a good sign either that they're just cleaning up, protecting, and preventing destruction of their testing equipment, or that they might be headed over to Massey's with it. I'm hoping for Massey's, because if that's true, then it means that we will get to see more testing over there and more static fires over here. So we want to just see static fire, stack and launch. That's the direction we should head. By the way, we've got only a few minutes left. We should pull up questions and any other donations that have been made.
Yeah, we have lots of donations.
Okay, let's do those first.
Okay. One moment, please. All right. We have donations from Cody Jones. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to do the last name. He donated $1, and then there's also a PayPal donation. I just need to get back into PayPal because they did the security thing and they locked me out. So just one moment, please. In the meantime, I can tell you that we also got donations from Lex Max, who donated 11 New Zealand dollars and says, congrats on episode 69. Nice. And then we also have 3 new members. Cosmic became a RGV aerial photos supporter, as did Andy Alder. Hey, Andy Alder. And Mike Crow. And we also have, let me get into PayPal. Mauricio, you want to read a question real fast? Oh, James
Yes,
L. Sorry. James L. donated $20 as well and says, here's some change for the flight over Booster 7. All you, Mauricio.
All right, the first question here, and thank you for the donations. The first question is from Segeti. Are they building past the suborbital tank farm already?
Are they building what past the tank farm?
Basically, are they expanding past the suborbital tank farm?
So they have expanded already over to this area for just building up the ground. And then they've done the same thing over here. The biggest problem is right now they need the Army Corps of Engineers approval to basically do a land swap where they donate a parcel of land that would be equal to or greater than what they're using. So if they're using up, let's say 18 acres or something like that, they will donate 18 or 50 acres to basically be a wildlife preserve. And it will be not just donated, it will basically be reclaimed land. So they'll take, let's say, an area like this, which is highlands, and make it lowlands like this. So they will basically have it corrected, and it will have to be in the Laguna Madre area here in the United States, of course, but it's Laguna Madre is that entire body of water that basically is here all the way up to South Padre Island. That used to be all the same body of water, and then they put in the canal and the jetties and everything else, and so it changed the dynamics. In fact, this used to be a river that went through here, so things have changed dramatically even before SpaceX came along. But the interesting part is that they will basically go as far out as they can on their property line, so it goes up to about here and then over this way. to about here, and then goes back this way. They actually own this area as well, but it's basically nature preserve, and then you have lines that say do not cross markers. So if you're down there for the launch and you want to go around looking at things, just keep a wary eye out for the markers, because if you trespass, you can be arrested, which is basically trespassing. Then getting arrested is not going to be a good position to be in. Anyways, what are the other questions we have?
Well, I have all the donations open, so I'm going to steal the mic back and read these off very quickly, since we're already past the top of the hour. We have a $48.50 donation from Bruce, who says, so Mauricio can fly on the next Starship. Wolfgang donated $10.53 and says, thanks for the photos. Dan donated $20. Andrew donated $100.33. Wow, thank you so much. Hank donated 4 pounds, I believe that's a pound sign, and 17 pence. Cody donated, this is the second donation for Cody that I mentioned earlier, donated $55.55 and says, fly safe, Mauricio. And Drake donated $20 and says, fly us. Yeah, let's fly us, Mauricio. We have to go out there, though, for him to fly us. So I'm still got to come out there to get my flyover. And back to you, Thomas.
Oh, thank you. Mauricio, did you have some more questions, or was that it?
We'll read out 2 more questions here. Cosmic asked, will they use the same landing mechanism as they do on Falcon 9 for Starship, or something completely different?
Well, it's going to be completely different for the boosters. So they will be attempting to catch them as of the 4th flight, according to what we're showing, maybe sooner. So there's a chance that if Booster 7 and Booster 9 and just fly just right, Booster 10 could be the first one to be caught. Could even go further depending on how accurate they are for their booster landings and everything else there for like boost back burn, all of that. The other side of it is going to be the ship. It sounds like they might go towards landing ships again. That one's kind of out there. We're not sure quite yet, but they're not going to be landing them for the foreseeable future. They're just going to destroy this one and the next 2 at the very least before they try to do basically the kick flip and land tail up in the ocean to do splashdowns there. Let's say along Hawaii.
All right, and I sent you a DM. I sent you a message with the exclusion zone for they call it the keep out zone. I don't know if you want to show that, Thomas. Now that we're at the end of the stream, for anybody that's going to go out there and watch the launch, this is a pretty handy document to have or take a screenshot of, so that nobody goes through that red area.
Yeah, so this is Highway 4 is actually doesn't show you one other element along Oklahoma. You have the first checkpoint, and only residents are allowed through these checkpoints, but they will basically be locking down Highway 4 as of midnight on Sunday. So you will not be able to, even as a resident, go down Highway 4. You'll be able to be on your property just fine, but the county roads will be locked down. So Maria, she's got property here that she and her invited guests are only allowed to be on their property. They're not allowed to be on Highway 4 except to leave. And there is going to be a sheriff here. That's the closest person I think that will be to the launch site, honestly. But yeah, you do not want to be anywhere here or in the ocean. If you're for some reason in a boat, you want to be well north of the jetties, because otherwise you will scrub the launch. We've seen that happen way too often. If you see other people on boats out there, let them know, just so everybody, keeps away from there. So be well north of the jetties. And that should really keep everybody safe, as well as the launch on schedule.
Yeah.
There's a little PSA there.
Thomas was almost the reason we had a scrub.
No.
Well, they did say, get your friend to GPJ.
Yeah, that was the day before the
cone.
launch.
Yeah, no, they were doing the nose cone. Nose cone jail.
Yeah, the nose cone jail was later. We watched that. I'm so glad that they, he called me and that they had, asked me to come out, because I was looking at SN15 from like, I don't know, 5 or 6 football fields away. So I wasn't anywhere near close to the vehicle. But I was taking photos of it, and apparently I was like downrange of the venting. So if there's any debris there, it potentially could be shot out towards me like a shotgun. So they didn't want me over there, especially if I was to wander towards the vehicle. That was the real problem. But that was May 4th of 2021, and now it's 2 years later almost, and we're going to have our first orbital test flight. It's so exciting.
So exciting. So exciting. Was there anything else you wanted, or are there any more questions?
No more questions. We're out of time.
We
I did
are.
want to thank everybody that did donate, and everybody watching. I know there's a full stack currently ongoing, or I don't know if it's already fully stacked. I haven't checked, but do want to thank everybody that donated. If you want to donate still, there's that link pinned to the top. Use that particular link to donate towards the multiple flyover, and we will keep you updated. I'll post the flight schedules on the YouTube. I'll put out a notification either here or on Twitter. And yes, thank you so much. We are definitely doing that second flight, and looking at the donations, we're definitely doing the third flight. So
all right, thank you everybody. We get 3 flights. Woohoo!
3 flights, ground photography at least once or twice or 3 times this week. Holy cow.
We know what you're doing this week, Mauricio.
Oh yeah, I cleared my schedule completely.
Mauricio doesn't mess around.
So yeah, I'm gonna dedicate this whole week for you all, and we're gonna make this happen. Keeping an eye on the weather, obviously, so that we fly safe, obviously, and yeah, buying those life jackets just in case. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for donations and everybody that has been watching with us today. I'll pass it along to Thomas or anything, sir.
Thomas, you want to go? You want me to go?
Well, I'd like to thank Jax for joining us. He had to leave. And one other person we should probably throw it off to afterwards is Nate. Otherwise, we forget him. But
I would
yeah,
never
thank you for
forget Nate.
But yeah, thank you for having me host today. I wasn't expecting to jump on again, but it's always fun and there's always something interesting. With that, I'll leave it to you.
Do you want to toss it to Nate?
Well, sure, Nate, go ahead.
I'll just steal it out of midair. Hey, thank y'all for letting me come in and kind of guest commentate again today. And anytime, I always enjoy it. How exciting is it to think that Monday, all these years we've been watching, speculating, this rocket is finally, possibly, hopefully going to launch. Isn't that awesome?
Light this candle.
That's right. And so I can't wait till that happens and Mauricio gets the various photos next week. Hopefully next weekend y'all are able to have another just an incredible Starbase Weekly and look at all of that. So with that being said, everybody, y'all have a great weekend. Here's to Monday morning and a successful lunch. And Indian Star, take it away.
I will. Real fast, if you are lucky enough to be an RGV supporter through Patreon or YouTube, when he does those flyovers, you can join us for the show and tells, because Mauricio always gives us first look the day that he does his photographs, whether they're ground or aerial. If you are a YouTube supporter, a flight supporter, or a Patreon tier member, then you are welcome to join us. You'll have access to the channel and you can actually have conversations with all of us and tell us what you think and then listen to what we think and we can all figure out what's going on. Other than that, I want to thank you all, as usual, for joining us. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your help. Thank you for everything. We appreciate you more than you know. And until next week, stage separation confirmed. Doggone it. I never remember the second line. Oh well. Love you. Bye.